Hey guys. Hold on. I have a crazy lizard in my lap. He is acting crazy today. I don't know what his deal is. He's jumping all over his tank and hanging from the top of the thing. He kept banging on the side of the tank, so I took him out, and now he's just... Why did they go to the kennels tonight, Kathy? Well, I know Paul was there to work on the sunflowers and things. But Maggie was there because Alex asked her to come there to go visit his father in the hospital, even though they never went to go visit his father in the hospital. And if you're like on Facebook or if you're on Twitch, I also have a YouTube channel under the same name if you prefer that. All right, let me connect to court.
Where Maggie's phone was located the next day.
Well, there are only two ways once you pull out of Moselle, left or right, so it's 50-50.
Oh,
so
a big storm coming through? Oh, Lord.
I think the prosecution
I'm a little nervous about that air from the train derailment or whatever.
There's no data trail
coming this way.
Everything about Maggie's phone was fine, how many steps she took, 55 steps. But they've never explained how her phone got from the kennel where she was murdered to the roadside. And secondly, there was testimony from the prosecution and the defense's expert about portrait to landscape configuration of the telephone. Maybe that's out of the window of a car, maybe not. Maybe that's the tumbling, maybe not. Or maybe somebody else drove it there, pulled over, which we know Alex Murdaugh did not do, walked 15 feet off the road and laid it on the ground. Why they would do that, I have no idea. One more.
Give me 1 minute. I'm gonna go feed my lizard so he stops acting like a crazy person.
The whole camera thing too is so confounding to me. Like, yesterday we heard from that expert saying it wasn't the Face ID, or at least, that's what I drew from it, that this wasn't somebody picking up the phone and trying to open it with the Face ID. It was somebody actually touching is what he made it sound like. And I said, oh yeah, that kind of changes things, at least a little bit for me. I want to do a quick question. Let's go around the boxes, around the squares here, and see what everybody thinks. Chris Adams, the cross, how long do you think it will last? Just give me a guess.
It's amazing the choices that the advocates get to make here. This could be a withering and tough 15-minute cross, or it could be a 2-day cross. I think the way this trial's gone, I'm going with the 2-day over.
Oh. 2-day cross. Okay. It sounds like somebody's laughing in my ear. Joe, how long will the cross go?
The prosecution has never seen a question they didn't want to ask, and they've never seen a witness they did not want to call. So sadly, I think we're going to spend this afternoon and tomorrow at least
on cross. Wow. Gigi, I think it'll go.
Yeah, I'm with Joe. He better get comfy
I'm
up
back.
there on the stand. They've got him right where they want him. They can ask all the questions they've been wanting to ask.
All I can hear is my lizard
I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. I think maybe the end of the day tomorrow we're done with him.
Cave to cave in his
tank. And maybe get some more bottled water up there, right? Drinking that bottled water earlier. Jack, how long do you think the cross will go?
Oh man, well,
don't tell me that. Several hours. I think it's going to be very deliberate. I think they're going to use a lot of emotion.
In like an hour.
Clayton has done that in different
Don't tell me it's going to be one of those days.
And I think he's going to try and make his points by being in his questioning. The big problem here
it might
for
be
the
true.
prosecution is they never
Sarah,
really
you have one of those days, aren't you?
Financial crimes to the murder as a motive. There's no
My kid got me earlier this week.
And so he may try on his cross-exammination.
I'm going to turn this down just a little bit till Alex comes on.
Right now, it's just
my kid was like,
just out there and
Mom, it hurts, on Tuesday. And I'm like,
what
man,
they're saying that he was trying to deflect.
you know,
or trying to
I
bring
think he's
sympathy.
missed like
Uh,
5 days of
doesn't
school
seem to
because
me
he
to be
was
a
pretty
motive
sick in the
of
beginning of the year.
So maybe we'll get
And I'm like,
we'll
I
get
thought it
some
was more than
insight,
that.
as to the prosecution's
Oh yeah,
theory
the
then.
snot, it was gross. I think he was a bit
People
to
could
make it
relate
look
to
like
if he
snot.
was having an
But
affair, if he was cheating
I was
on
a little
Maggie,
nervous
if
because
there
I
was
thought it
life
was more
insurance
than that.
money on
And he's
Maggie
like,
and
my
Paul.
stomach hurts. Check
People can relate to
check
that.
the
But this whole,
emails
like,
you
I
sent
killed
to
my wife
school.
and son
So I
because
let
I
him
had all
stay
this pressure.
home.
And it was, I
And
needed to
all he needed to
distract
do
people
was
for a few weeks.
burp, and then he was fine
It's
for
a
the
lot
rest
to
of the
wrap your
day.
head
And it
around.
cost me
But
$90
we'll
school
see.
day because I had to
Well,
get him
everybody, we've
Mario
had fun as
Kart
usual
so we
answering.
could sit and play video games.
We've had fun as usual answering all your
Hey,
questions.
Callie Glitter.
And we do it every lunch hour, and we love doing it. So I'm going to be signing
Yeah,
off.
he had drool
Gigi's going
and
to be
snot
signing
and
off.
all
She and
kinds
Joe
of
need to
stuff
get
coming
back into
from his
court.
face
So
at
thanks,
some
guys,
point.
for
But
coming
he
out and
did,
hanging out with me.
if you're just,
I'll be tossing it
catching
back
on
over
to
to
this,
Michelle
if you haven't been
So
watching all
thanks so much
morning,
again. I'm
he
Anjanette
admitted
Levy, and you've
he
been watching Law
was
and Crime. We'll be right back.
at the kennels, and that he lied to SLED. He admitted he was at the kennels and that he lied to SLED. And am I missing anything? I mean, oh, he said he got a shower before dinner. Mario Kart? He wanted to play Mario Kart. Am I saying it weird? Mario Kart. I might have said it like that, like Mario Kart. Mario Kart. Do I say it weird? It's just sparked a conversation with my mom where she never knew about my father. Yeah, one of those combos. Oh, Lord. Mom swears he must be. She thinks Alex is innocent? No way. Yeah, I know a couple people who have a stomach issue. Hey, Abra. Hey, Jeremiah. I know some people have. I say it weird. Apparently, I say Barry weird too. I don't know. It's supposed to be Mario, like Mario. I say Mario, okay? I guess it's it's the Philly accent in me. I don't know. Well, I know Mario. It's so weird saying it like that. He says it like Mario, but I say it Mario. Just comes out that way. I don't know. Yeah, so he didn't really give anything too crazy. You love my accent. I didn't like at certain things. You know what I do a lot of times too when I'm telling a story about going to the beach? I say like, oh yeah, we went down the shore. And like that's just how we say like because it's like south from well, it's technically like southeast, but we say down the shore. Like that means we went to the beach. I'll say like, oh yeah, we went down the shore, and people will be like, what the hell is down the shore? So I say water. I don't say water. That's how all Philadelphians say it. They're like water ice. I'm gonna get some water ice. My Michigan accent still trying to right after I talk to my phone. Yeah. I mean, mine's not as heavy as some other people. It depends what county you're in. A lot of people from Delco have like a really, really strong accent. Like Granny's watching. She has a very strong Philly accent. But she's got to be in a different county than me. It really depends on like what county you're in, where you'll have like a really strong accent or like a subtle one. Mine's subtle compared to other people's. Wagon. Is there like another way to say that? I think we say orange funny. Like people say orange. I say orange. Crayons. Coffee. We say like coffee, not like cough. I don't even know how people say. Like I can't even say it another way. I'm from Minnesota. People say we have an accent, but I've never said you betcha. I say y'all a lot, but I'm not Southern, but I just say y'all all the time.
Back on Michelle Yu. It's been a mammoth day down in South Carolina as all eyes
Oh,
have
like
been
Wagon.
on Alex Murdaugh
That's
himself for
weird.
his double murder trial. The disgraced former
Oregon?
attorney took this in a very
Oregon?
surprising
Oregon?
move. So far, we have learned that he lied to the
Oregon.
police about being in the kennels the
I
night
think
of the
I
murders,
say it like
and has
Oregon, like
denied
a
killing his wife Maggie
heart
and
organ.
son Paul.
Oregon.
His reasoning for that,
Oregon.
he claimed that his lies stemmed from his
All right,
drug
hold on.
addiction.
Let me say it
The
like
clothing he wore that day was
I
also
like to
questioned,
play
as it's
Oregon
been
Trail.
fascinating to watch.
So I guess
of the trial.
I guess
so
I say
far.
Oregon.
Court is still on a lunch break, but let's show you
I don't
some
know.
of that key testimony from earlier today.
Now I'm thinking about it.
Mr. Murdaugh, is that you?
Yeah, breakfast room is weird to me too. I'm like, who calls it a breakfast
The
room?
night Maggie and Paul were murdered.
It is.
Were you in at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you lie to SLED Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th and told them that you stayed at the house after dinner?
So at 3, I have to leave
Did you lie
to
to
go pick
Agent
up my
Owen?
child from school. Is I'm
Follow-up
going to
interview
call
on
StreamYard
June 10th
from my
that the
phone
last time you saw Maggie and Paul
so I can still
was
talk.
at dinner.
I did lie to them.
But I may have to like mute for
And in the
longer
interview of August 11th,
moments and
did you
stuff
tell
like
Agent
that
Owen
because
and
my
Agent
kid's
Croft,
7 and he's extremely
did you
loud.
lie to them that you were not down at the kennels on that night?
Yes.
Alec, why did you lie to Agent Owen, Agent Croft, and Deputy Rutland about the last time you saw Maggie and Paul?
Philly, we say
As my
use
addiction evolved over time,
guys, or we say that a lot too.
I would get in these circumstances where I would get paranoid.
Yeah, right, Kelly?
Thinking. It could be anything that triggered it. It might be a look somebody gave me. It might be a reaction somebody had to something I did. It might be a policeman following me.
Let's be real, Alex. You lied because you killed your damn family. This court stream is so loud. Like usually I'm like struggling to hear what they're saying. I say soda. Well, all right. It's about a carbonated, sugary drink. In general, I say soda. But if I'm talking about cola, I say get me a Coke. If I'm asking for a Sprite, I say get me a Sprite. I know some people call all soda Coke. And some people say pop. But like, I'll be like, hey, get me a Coke if I want Coke. Hey, get me a Dr. Pepper if I want Dr. Pepper. But if I'm in general talking about soda, or if I only have one brand of soda, I'll say, hey, get me a soda. I know people call like shopping carts weird names too, like buggies or something. And freeze pops, I say freeze pops. But people call like them weird things too. For all, yeah, I know a lot of people say Coke for everything, but how would somebody know if you wanted a Sprite and you said get me a Coke? How are you like? How does that work?
Jury is present.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So, like, if you're having a conversation about soda, you'll say,
Mr.
like,
Murdaugh, I
got
want
me a
to
Coke instead of soda. Wow, this is so loud.
go to June the 7th, 2021, in your meeting with Jean Seckinger.
Okay.
Do you remember meeting Ms. Seckinger?
I do.
And what was the meeting about?
Jeannie came up to me and
Unless I'm
asked me
instructing
previously,
someone to go
Annette
buy
Griswold
concrete at the
had
store.
come to me and asked me about the fee check in the Ferris case. And Jeannie was coming to me and that she was following up on that. If she didn't, she wouldn't be doing her job, and asked me some questions,
Well, let me ask you
which I understood.
briefly, the Ferris
All right,
fee,
pecan pie.
what originally happened to it? The PED portion of the Ferris fee.
I mean, originally,
Yes, sir. Did it come to you directly?
yes,
Should it have come to you directly?
no.
Did, when Ms. Seckinger asked you about where the fee was, what'd you tell her?
I can't remember exactly what I told her. The conversation got interrupted very quickly, but I told Jeannie that the funds were in Chris Wilson's account and nothing to worry about. I didn't know where to make.
What was your level of concern about Ms. Seckinger's inquiry to you on June the 7th?
There was some level of concern because she's asking me about money that I took that I wasn't supposed to have. So certainly I had some level of concern. It wasn't a very big concern. As you heard testimony earlier, at some point, Annette Griswold had sent Chris Wilson an email, something to the effect of, Alec thinks he has more expenses, or seeking financial documents from Chris Wilson. When Chris Wilson I wasn't copied on that, but when Chris Wilson got that, Chris Wilson called me up and he's like, what is this all about?
So that I found out.
I said objection rules 801 and 802. Your Honor.
Response?
Your Honor, I'm not asking for what Chris Wilson said, and I'll move on. I accept the objection. Were you concerned about Chris Wilson opening his trust account records to your law firm?
No, I was not concerned about that at all.
And why were you not concerned?
I knew one of the people that Chris Wilson, as you heard, Chris Wilson and I were very close. We talked every day. I did work with him all the time. And I mean, he was one of the people closest to me in the whole world. I knew everything about him. And I knew one of his partners, and he and his partner had split up. A partner and an associate had moved to a firm in Charleston. The partner was going through a divorce, and the wife of the partner was trying to get Chris Wilson's trust documents to find out money her husband got. It didn't have anything to do with Chris and I or anything. It totally had to do with that. But I knew that Chris Wilson was not going to send any financial documents to my law firm, at least at that time, not anytime soon. So while I'm sure it registered with me that I got to deal with this, at that particular time, it wasn't anything that was a big deal.
Was there an immediate urgency to the situation on June the 7th?
No.
He is sneaky.
And I believe Ms. Seckinger testified about your conversation with her. You learned that your dad was going back in the hospital.
That's correct. There was a text. I can't remember if that text came from my brother Randy or my brother John, but they were the ones that were taking my dad back to the hospital that day.
He's looking
and one was with him. I believe it was John was with him at the hospital, but I know Randy was with him at some treatments. They send those documents. But bottom line is, we got a text saying, we knew my dad was really sick. He had cancer and he couldn't breathe. And there was a big issue about whether his inability to coming from an obstruction caused by the cancer, which was the worst case scenario. And that's what it ended up being ultimately. And that's what he died from. But this particular text was saying, okay, we're putting him back in the hospital. The doctor thinks it's pneumonia, and which was, I mean, pneumonia is never
really
a good
does.
thing, but when compared to cancer, at that time, pneumonia, that was a good thing to learn that.
So on the 7th, where the information you had, you believe at that time that the prognosis was pretty positive for your father?
Well, it was better than the alternative. I'm not going to say it was good, but it was better than the alternative and what we had previously thought it was. It didn't stay good very long, but it definitely was better.
Do you know whether or not you told Ms. Seconder that that you're terminal on the 7th? Do you remember whether you said that or not?
No, I wouldn't have said that at that time. And what Jeannie, as soon as the thing comes through that my dad's going in the hospital, Jeannie and I, as you heard, I mean, she stopped the meeting. We stopped, lasted a couple minutes. Now, my dad's going in the hospital, and the very next day, we learned that he's terminal. And I'm just sure that a year or the amount of time that's gone by, Jeannie assumed she was terminal. He was terminal.
Objections overruled.
Mr. Murdaugh, on June the 7th, did you believe that your financial house of cards was about to crumble?
I wonder why they objected to that. I mean,
Yes, sir.
Absolutely
hey,
not.
Sabrina.
Had
I hope
had you
Alex
had,
feels better.
and I think there's documented evidence, state introduced, had you had reached out to Russell Lafitte at Palmetto State Bank about extending a line of credit on the Moselle property?
Yeah, I had reached out to him. I that text, but
Yeah, I would
it
have
was
thought so too. going
fairly
in.
recently. I had reached out to Russell.
And on June 7th, did you have equity in the Moselle property that, or you and Maggie had equity in that Moselle property?
Sure. And was fully in Maggie's name.
Okay.
But yes, there was equity in Moselle. In looking at the documents that had been used, there was
Yes, it was
$1,800,000
fully in her name.
owed, the 3.3 million without timber value. And so on 1,700 acres, I don't know what the timber value was, but if you just set $1,000 an acre, that'd be another million something dollars in value over and above the appraisal. Timber value was that high. I'm just using that as an example, but if it was 500, it'd be another $800,000. So, there was several $1 million in equity in that Moselle property.
All right. And did you have equity in the Edisto Beach House?
Yes.
And on which equity did you have in the Edisto Beach House?
If I remember the records correctly, there was about $250,000 owed on that house, and whatever the value was at the time. I think there's a contract for $1 million.
I was kind of shocked at her, but I guess
something $1,000.
Yeah, I know Russell was.
Did
They just had his trial like a couple months ago,
Maggie's
right?
Yeah.
The CEO of Palmetto,
more
right? That's
difficult
who he is.
to obtain financing immediately after the murder around.
Jan Secondger's brother-in-law.
Yes,
How so?
because the entire Moselle property was 100% in Maggie's name. The Edisto property was in Maggie's name. So I was only a half owner. So with Maggie, all I had to do is get her to sign the documents, which she always did. I mean, she didn't question finances. So, I mean, she signed the papers. When Maggie wasn't here, there was estate issues. I couldn't go and sign the papers like I would normally go and get a loan. So I couldn't.
Was there a hearing scheduled in the voting lawsuit where you were a defendant set for that week?
Yes.
Do you remember what day it was scheduled for?
Well, I mean,
I
I've
wonder
heard the
if-
testimony and I'm sure I knew at the time it's June the 10th. June the 10th.
He was
were-
related to
What
like
was your
the Kennedys, I thought, or something like
um,
I could be
level
wrong
of
now,
concern
but I
about
swear
that
she was
hearing?
like a far
Coming up on June
removed
the
like
10th.
cousin of the Kennedys.
About that hearing?
Shit.
yes, sir.
My level of concern about that hearing was venue motion that was coming up, which
I wonder if he purposely had Maggie put the stuff in her name, so because he knew he was
Now, what
in
do you mean by
like
venue?
some shady crap.
the venue motion is, venue is where a civil lawsuit is pending. And so there's and rules that govern where you can bring a case. There's laws and rules that govern how certain parties, a defendant or a plaintiff, can go about trying to move it from one place to another. So in this case, the plaintiffs, the Beach family, had filed suit in Hampton County. Parker's was trying to move venue to Beaufort County. And I wanted the case to stay in Hampton County. And that was my only thought about, I wasn't doing the legal work on those. I was a party in that case. I wasn't. I mean, Danny Henderson was primarily representing me personally. John Tiller and Amy Bauer were representing me personally. And Dawes Cook was representing me personally. Guys that were doing the legal work. So
She owns
you know,
Moselle outright.
um,
Okay, cousin of the Kennedys. All right. I
I
thought she was
wasn't actually
related
doing
somehow.
that work, but what I was concerned about was the venue motion. I had already done what I had to do for the financial motion. And Danny Henderson was on me about getting him a financial because
Let's stop. So there was a motion to compel and seek a lot of financial records from you. Was that correct?
absolutely.
And were you concerned that your house, financial house, was going to be opened up for the world as a result of that hearing?
No, I've been a plaintiff's lawyer like Mr. Tinsley that sat here. We do the same exact thing. The guys in my law firm are some of the best lawyers that I've ever known. And they're definitely some of the best lawyers in the state, handling some of the biggest cases that have ever gone on in this state. In my 27 years of practicing, plaintiffs always are trying to look and get financial documents of corporate defendants, of, those type things. In my 27 years, I've never been able to get a judge to order anything more than prior to getting into a phase at trial. So early on in the case, I am not aware of, I personally have never, despite trying repeatedly, have never been able to get a judge to order the kind of information that Mark Tinsley was saying he was seeking.
Were you working on a document for that upcoming hearing?
Yes,
And what was that?
a financial statement. A financial statement lists your assets and your liabilities.
And had you reached out to Jeannie Seconder later the day on the 7th, and balance of your retirement account?
You know, I don't remember doing that, but that'd certainly be something that I did. And because I know I'd have to have that for that financial statement.
I don't believe
And
him at
the
all.
document
saying
that
he
I
wasn't
prepared
worried about it.
was what Mark Ball talked about that he found later in my office. And it was typed, it was handwritten, ready to be typed up by, you know, because of the charges against Paul, I kept everything very close in the civil case. It was Danny in his office doing it. And I had that document prepared, handwritten in the neatest handwriting that I could make, because a secretary other than mine, or paralegal other than mine, was going to be the person who was going to put that financial information into the final document. And that's the document that Mark Ball talked about that he found whenever it was that he found it. So that was what was going to be, if necessary, what was going to be used Thursday.
Alex, jury's
I'm gonna
heard
switch over real quick, and then I'll be
about
on my phone.
testimony of you stealing client funds. Did you do that?
I did.
Did you steal or divert that Ferris fee away from the law firm?
I did.
In such a financial predicament that led you to steal money that wasn't yours?
No, I'm not quite sure how I let myself get where I got, but it came from, you know, I battled that addiction for so many years. I was spending on pills. I got in a spot I couldn't.
Now, what type of addiction are you referring to?
My addiction is to opiate painkillers,
And when
specifically oxycodone, OxyContin.
And when did you first become dependent or addicted to opioids?
Oxycodone or opiates in general?
Opiates in general.
I'm not quite sure of the exact date. I can give you a time frame. I hurt my knee really bad playing football in college, and I had a knee surgery. And the medical science at the time was such that the surgery didn't work, bottom line. So it just did. So within a couple of years of that, I started having a lot of knee troubles. And ultimately, I had to have a couple of surgeries, but the last surgery I had was, I think, around 2002 or 4. And 4, so I would have started taking hydrocodone a couple of years before that. And I took hydrocodone, got addicted to that very quickly. I continued taking that for a long time. I'd force myself off of it. I'd go back to it. I battled that for a long time. And after a while, I was taking so much of that, I moved on to oxycodone. And, you know, I'm guessing that was around 2000, that transition, 2000.
Can everyone hear me? I'm on this.
Something like that. And of course, you know, it just escalates, escalates, escalates. And
Did you receive treatment or go to detox on occasion?
I did.
How many times?
That I went to detox or that I detoxed?
Well, let's start with going to a detox facility.
I've been to a detox facility 3 times.
When was the first time?
2017.
Probably echoing because I'm in my house, but now I'm outside,
And,
so it shouldn't.
Before December 2017, had you tried to detox at home?
I tried to detox everywhere I could. Me, go ahead.
Yeah, when you went in to was it inpatient facility?
The detoxes, the formal detoxes that I went to?
In December 2017.
Yes, it was it was inpatient. And all 3 formal detoxes that I've done at a facility called Sunrise Detox in Atlanta, Georgia.
And is
Very good facility.
jury's heard an audio tape of a telephone conference with SLED agents. Was that where you were during that meeting with Mr. Harpootli and I?
That's correct.
First time you went to the detox in Atlanta, how long of a stay is that? Did you stay?
7 days is the opiate detox program.
And is there a difference between detox and rehab?
Yes.
What's the difference?
Detox is it's the act of getting the drugs out of your system, getting to the point where, okay, there is no longer a physical dependency, all right? And that's a big difference than the rest of the dependency, but the physical dependency is supposed to be gone after 7 days. So in other words, there's so many things. Opiate withdrawal is, it's hard.
It is gorgeous out.
Supposedly at the end of 7 days, you
here.
don't have those physical symptoms like, I don't want to be too graphic, but you're sick, you throw up, you have terrible diarrhea, you sweat like you're running a marathon. You can't hold your legs still.
Because one's my phone and one's my
Now,
computer.
like, what I'm talking about, the legs moving, that
Right,
goes
if I
away
remove
after
myself from the
24
computer,
hours.
the video will
After
stop
about
playing.
24 hours, you
All
can lay down
And
again.
then mute until I get to my
Sleep
kids'
some.
school.
But you sweat, you throw up, you just have issues. But after 7 days, those are supposed to be over. That's what detox is, the detoxification of your body.
And what's rehab?
Rehab is the period that you go to learn how to stay off. You're supposedly off after detox. Rehab is where you get help.
And before September 2021, had you ever gone to that second stage of rehab?
No.
So in December 2017, how long did it take you to relapse once you got home from detox?
Not long at all. You're still going through. Physical dependency is gone. You still have, you're still so sick.
Is that something you've been battling for quite some time?
As long as I can remember.
How long have you been drug-free, free?
535 days. And I'm very proud of that.
I want to ask you questions about Labor Day weekend 2021.
Okay.
You remember being confronted by your law firm?
Sure I do.
And what were you confronted about?
Stealing money.
And did you admit your misconduct to your law partners?
Well, to one of my law partners and my brother and my law partners, so Danny and Randy.
Did
Admit it.
and they learned about a fake forge account? Did you admit to the fake forge account?
Yes, I did.
And did you tell them about your opioid struggles?
I told them about my addiction. Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, were any of your law partners aware of your addiction?
Not just to my knowledge. I'm certain that they were not aware of my addiction.
How would you characterize your opioid use or addiction?
Then or now?
No, in 2020, 2021,
I mean, I don't know how I would have characterized it then. After going to rehab and learning some more of the things I've learned, really addicts about experiences. I mean, I will tell you that my addiction was extremely bad.
how were you able to function? Or were you able to function?
Yes, I was able to function.
You were able to practice law?
Yeah,
Yes.
no way he spent that much on pills. No way. Even in a
Law while
month,
you were addicted
that's
to
a
opioids?
ridiculous amount.
On some level, yes, sir, I was successful. I mean,
After you were confronted on Labor Day weekend 2021, did you resign or were you forced to
Work
resign?
needs to get with the program, Roll Tide. The Alex Murdaugh trial is
And then
way
on,
more important.
Saturday, September the 4th. Do you remember what happened that day?
Saturday, September, I remember.
And what happened?
Yeah, $65K
I
on
woke
pills. What do you say, a week?
Well, let's
Even if that's a
start
month,
after
you'd
you
be
met with
dead.
Chris
That's a
Wilson. Did you meet with
ridiculous
Chris Wilson?
amount
Met
of
with
money
Chris
for
Wilson at
pills.
my mom's and dad's
Unless
house in
people were taking
Alameda.
advantage of them, but still, even so, you could be that stupid to spend that much money.
Lay it out for Chris Wilson, your opioid addiction and your misconduct.
I definitely laid out my addiction. I definitely gave him some details about monies that I had taken. We didn't go into all the details about all of it, but I certainly was very candid with him about the things that involved him.
Had you already
I haven't heard him say anything about his daily
contacted
intake.
the detox facility before you met with Chris Wilson on the?
I believe that we had already, at that point, I believe that we had already spoken to the guy that I knew from Sunrise and made arrangements for me to go there on.
And
I know we had arrangements for me to go there on Monday, and I'm sure we had to have had it by then because I went to the hospital shortly after that. So yes,
and did you reach out to Blanca to get your insurance information?
I did.
And for what purpose?
Because I was going to use my insurance at.
You mean like he
detox
asked him to
clinic.
specify a question and then decides which way to go with it?
And what was your immediate plans after? I mean, for the day after you met with Chris Wilson, did you have plans to do anything? Have any other meetings that Saturday?
I wanted to go and meet with Corey Fleming, who was another lawyer who was affected by the things I did.
Okay. And did you?
And a good friend.
Did you go meet?
Right,
with Corey Fleming?
Brian?
No.
By the way, I'm excited. I got
What you doing
black alligator skin wallpaper for my
I'd give him
my streaming room.
when
I
I gave
figured
my
it was
pills
so
to my
mean.
brother Randy and Danny. I think I gave them to Randy, but I took a lot of pills because I knew I wasn't going to be taking anymore. So Randy had my pills. Get some from him the night before, but I only got a small amount. I could tell, I wasn't taking anything near like what I had been taking, so I knew it was coming. And I called someone, and I believe before I met with Chris Wilson.
And did you meet this? Did the person you called bring you more pills?
I don't know if he brought me more pills or not, because by the time I met with him, after meeting with Chris, And after, the starting of the withdrawals, I changed my plans.
And what the change in plans?
Not to get pills from him anymore. And instead, I asked him to shoot me.
Did you ask him to shoot you as a sympathy ploy, or did you want?
As a sympathy ploy?
Yes, sir. Why did you ask him to shoot you?
I doubt it's expensive. I think people charge about like $1 a milligram now.
I meant for him to shoot me so I'd be gone.
20 milligram, it would be like $20, but it's not that expensive. It's not $65K
Did you
a
ask
week.
to do this?
Eddie Smith.
And did he in fact shoot you?
He did.
And where was that located? Not your gunshot, but where were you shot in Hampton or Colleton County? Where were you?
It's Hampton County. It's right on the border of Salkehatchie Road. It runs right along the Salkehatchie River.
And
I think he's saying the number is that high because he paid Eddie like a really high amount of money before the murders.
For my son.
And a lot of people think like he paid him that money to help him with the murders, but I think he's trying to say he spent that much on drugs, so that way it explains away the large amount of money that he gave to Eddie.
In the bad place that I was, it seemed like a better thing to do. I don't think that way now, thankfully, but I did at the time.
did you have life insurance on you?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of life insurance.
And who was the beneficiary?
Maggie was the beneficiary.
How much life insurance did you have?
$4 million. I had a $4 million policy and a and an $8 million policy, a total of 12.
Did you ever have any life insurance on Maggie?
No, never.
Did you ever have any life insurance on Paul?
No.
Alex, will you tell this jury about Maggie and your relationship with her?
Y'all saw a picture. She was just beautiful inside as she was outside. And I mean, she was so adventurous. I mean, you couldn't tell her something was good or bad. And she wanted to find out for herself. She wanted to do it, see it, experience it on her own and form her own opinion. She was, those two boys bust her. Paul.
Well, if Eddie was his drug dealer, he certainly wouldn't want to get rid of it. Like, I think Eddie was getting his drugs. I just don't think he was paying that much for them.
Ever. Fun, playful. I mean, she had a laugh that, you didn't even have to know what was funny if you heard her laugh. She had this little playful look where she'd smile at you and bite her lip. I can't do it, but I mean, when she just do it, it just you know, she was such a lady, such a feminine person, a girl, but then she had 2 boys, and me in the swamp and in the country, riding 4-wheelers and hunting and fishing.
I mean,
And
Ryan, he admitted he was there
she
minutes before they were killed. I
she
don't know
changed
how.
everything.
And they were killed with his own guns. I
She
don't know how to explain that away. Like, there's no
she
way
became I mean,
another killer
life became ball and
came onto
riding
the
4-wheelers
property
and
and was able to make them feel comfortable
doing those things.
and
Now,
grab a
don't get me
gun
wrong, she was
and shoot
still
them within 10
100%
minutes,
girl.
within like 5, 10
You
minutes
heard
of
me
him
say, I mean,
leaving.
she loved to do those things with her nieces, but I mean, she threw herself into, I mean, you know, she never took not working for granted. I mean, she
I don't think Eddie was
might
ever
not have
going to
worked.
kill
I
him. I
promise you,
think
she worked.
he did that
And
to make
she
it look
worked to make
like
sure
whoever
me and
killed Paul was
and
after him.
Buster had everything. You
They
know,
never found the
she,
guns, but the shells
she wanted a
had
big
Paul's
family,
DNA on them, which
and
means Paul loaded the gun.
pregnancy just didn't suit her. Her pregnancies were so hard. I would leave her in the mornings and she'd be sick. I'd come home and check on her and she'd be sick. At the end of the day and she'd be sick. I mean, she was so sick all the time with both those boys. And when we had Paw, Maggie got in trouble and Paw got in trouble. Just pregnancy didn't
Think of
suit
it
her,
like
so we
this.
decided
At 8:44,
that
he's
we would
on
just have
camera,
boys. And
heard talking. So he at least
and
had to be there for like another 5
it
minutes,
wasn't
right?
her, just made her love those boys
Then no way someone else
so
came on the
much more
property without any
than she
guns
did.
that Maggie
But
and
she
Paul
was the
felt
kind of
comfortable
person,
around, that was able
Maggie,
to get on the
she
property,
would put on the most
grab their
elegant
guns, and walk
ball
up to
gown
them and
and
shoot
go
them
to the governor's mansion,
in that short of time span.
you know, the most
They
affluent
died
people, whatever.
around
Or she could come
8:50,
down
9
to,
o'clock. So there, it just,
you know, she could go
how
to
else would you explain that?
a food bank in Hampton or Walterbur and fit in. Everybody at both places would say when she left, and that Maggie, she's a good one. She's just
I mean,
special.
technically, right now, he's 100% innocent
Alex,
in the
Special
court of
person.
law, but
Yeah.
I don't think he's innocent.
I
Like,
would
I
never
don't think he didn't do it.
hurt Maggie. Ever.
Will you tell the jury about Paul, please, and your relationship with him?
And Paw. I mean, Paw was just the brightest. He was bright. He's the most inquisitive young man. He wanted to be a part of everything. If you were working, I can remember as a little boy, it didn't matter what it was. His little head was going to come in there, his nose in there to see what you were doing. He was a man's man. He was 100% country boy.
No,
He was
I
tough.
mean, he didn't need to turn into the Hulk, but the ATV, or not the ATV, the golf cart was right there. He could have
He could
easily
run any
had
piece of
2
equipment.
different
He could
guns
use any tool.
on the golf cart
Um,
and killed Paul with the shotgun and then
I mean, he
switched
could
to the
do
rifle for
anything.
Maggie.
At 22 years old, he could do so many things. I mean, he took care.
If he had them hiding in the golf cart,
He
he
was
could have
so
easily
tough.
just
But
put one down and grabbed the other.
On the other hand,
That golf cart was parked right in between where they both
he
were
had a
killed.
side to him that was just so sweet. I mean, he wouldn't come home where his grandparents. He wouldn't go near Somerville where he wouldn't go out of his way, check on his grandparents. You know, to be such a tough person, he would get all of his buddies and get on a boat and go watch a sunset. And people you know do stuff like that. I mean, he was such a special boy. He cared about people. He was fiercely, fiercely loyal. He was so misrepresented in the media.
Maggie also had a tire impression on her
Never
calf,
an accurate
so
story
that
told
would
about
even
what
explain
he
the golf
was.
cart.
And I'll challenge you right now. I would challenge everybody in this room to go find somebody that knew Pawpaw, who really knew him, that did not have, that would say something negative about him. And I challenge everybody who can hear me now to do that. I mean, Paul was
Yeah,
that
he
kind of
said it to
person.
somebody. I forget who he said it to,
He
but
would
he
help
did
you,
say whoever did this
and he would be glad
planned
to
it
help
for a
you.
long time.
You know, I thought Mark Ball made a good point when he said, you know, Pawpaw might not have quite found his place yet. Paul was ADHD, and so he would jump around from thing to thing a lot. But no question in my mind whatsoever that Pawpaw would have found whatever that thing was that he was going to do. And whatever that ended up being, he was going to be one of the best at it that you've ever known. And I'll tell you one more thing. And I didn't even know this when Paul was alive. But, excuse me. Excuse me. When they were doing his eulogy, I gave the names of some of his friends. And
My kid just got in the car, so I will be talking in a minute.
they were just friends. But cute little girl Maggie adored. I didn't know her very well, but adored her. But they talked to her, and Pawpaw. We learned this from her, Julianne. And at 22 years old, learned. Pawpaw would tell his friends, appreciate where you are, the things you have, and the people around you. I think a lot of that came from it hurt Paul so bad when Mallory died. But I mean, 22-year-olds, you know, that think that way. Be present. Appreciate things around you. At 22 years old.
Alex,
He's the most special boy.
do you love Paul?
That I love him. Like no other. He ain't
Do you love Maggie?
more than anything. I love Maggie from the first time we went out.
Did you kill Maggie?
No, I did not kill Maggie. I did not kill
I
Paul.
agree that the state
Never hurt Maggie.
hasn't done a good
I would
job
never hurt
proving
Paul.
the case, but
Never.
I still think he's guilty, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. Please answer any questions the state may have.
I think the state could have done a better job, though, for sure. But I just, when I try and piece together, like, who else could have done it or how it could have happened, I can't find another angle of how that would have been possible. Wait, I missed that. Did they say they're taking a break?
It's hard to say. I mean, I've been on Twitter along with you, Linda, all morning, and I've been trying to gauge the temperature of people are kind of buying it in terms of the emotion, and I mean, he owned it. Like in terms of what I was most interested in, to be honest, was whether or not the team, and that was obviously something that was
I also
discussed.
think that the SLED didn't really do a good job investigating, so prosecution didn't have much to work with. So, I mean, I think they did the best they could, but they didn't prove their case.
Actually made an in-court confession to the financial crimes, which, if I'm thinking correctly, about the same amount of time that the homicides would. So to me, it's pretty powerful that he didn't, whether or not he was going to assert his Fifth Amendment right.
Well, Captain Kirk, at least he'll go to jail for his financial crimes, though.
And which will obviously
Thank you, Ryan.
really be able to be used.
I will. I mean, I am open to all opinions, and I can understand where you're coming from.
Look, I know I'm admitting this in open court. I'm going in on those now, but one thing I'm not going to go in on is that I killed my wife and my son. So I away from it, whether or not you believe
I was that way about Barry Morphew, and people thought I was crazy, but
okay, Chris Adams, I've been, as you know, I do a lot of defense work just like you do, and just in the last segment, okay, first of all, let me say that one of the things that he does have if he gets found not guilty is he gets access to the Moselle property, the Edisto Beach property, which he doesn't if he's convicted of homicide. But that being said, if I am his counsel, I was worried about a couple of things. One, when he said Paul was nosing around all the time. He was trying to be, I think, cute, but that nosing around is what we heard about the little detective earlier. And if I were his counsel, I was also a little concerned when he said the word, and I wrote it down, so misrepresented in the media about his son Paul, because that was the exact same terminology used by Maggie's sister when she testified. So misrepresented in the media. And to me, then I said, oh, rehearsal. What are your thoughts?
I think it's really when you put up your defendant, and whether you encouraged them to testify, advised them to testify, or whether they chose to do it over your strenuous objection. You have choices to make, and one is to have a very short direct and then hope you can survive cross. The other is to do they obviously chose, and Jim Griffin chose to put on a lengthier direct examination and to expand the scope and spend a lot of time on the relationships. So I'm sure that it was prepared with counsel. Whether that comes across as contrived, cursed, it didn't sound that way to me. But ultimately, the jurors will decide that. It's now the fireworks are going to start as we shift into cross-examination.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to the cross-examination here, as with all our viewers. But we're going to take a quick break here at the Law and Crime. These are my two great guests. We are in the Alex Murdaugh trial, and he is on the stand, and fireworks are about to begin. So let's take our break now. Please join us on the other side.
sorry, I'm at the store taking my kid to get popsicle. What are they taking a break for? Like a 10-minute break? You can flip back for a few minutes, Ryan, if you want, but you got to come back. I think it's only a short break. I didn't hear what they said. Oh, they're ready for cross? Oh, you're welcome, Abra. I mean, I'm gonna stay on while I'm at the store. I'm just doing it through my phone. Come on. 10-minute recess. Ugh. It's so annoying that they do that. Sarah, say hi. Sarah said hi, Aunt. You gonna say hi? Hi. He's cranky because I took his candy out of my bag and he wanted it after school. Well, come on, let's go get your popsicles. It'll cheer you up. Yeah, if they're ready for cross, then you most definitely cannot flip back now. I want them, but I just want my. All right. Well, we'll get your popsicles. Well, cross is going to be good. I want. I wonder who is going to cross. Go. Sorry. I hope it's that guy who's a little feisty. I don't know who he is, but he did cross once, I think. And he was a little feisty and I liked him. Not Jim. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I got a phone call and it like cut me off. Oh, thank you, Ryan. I will. I'll get him. I will get him both. But yeah, we definitely need the feisty guy. Can you guys hear me? Oh man, I am a mess. I'm trying to carry. Okay, good. I don't have a cart. Sorry, I'm not good at multitasking. I walked in without a cart, and now my kid put like 87. Hold on. We gotta go outside and get it.
Well, we are hot in the case of Alex Murdaugh. And by the way, that's how he pronounced his name when he was on the stand this morning, who is on the stand, as I told you, in that South Carolina courtroom, saying he did not shoot, he did not kill, he did not murder, he did not slaughter his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul. The court is on a little bit of a break. They'll be coming back soon. That gives me a chance to discuss with my guest, the great trial attorney, Chris Adams, also from South Carolina.
All right, I'm good now.
Who is the host of Defense Diaries, about what we have been watching. Now, Chris, let me start with you first. All right. He admitted that he was a drug addict, okay, in denying these homicides.
I mean, he didn't really admit to anything we didn't know.
And all that is consistent with somebody who has a severe opioid
Besides admitting
addiction.
that he was at the kennels, I mean, I think that's huge.
And so I will forgive him for that, and let me just look at the evidence of the homicide.
Certainly, when somebody testifies, more of their personal story and personal experiences come out. And each juror is going to be listening to that and then also thinking about their life experience. And we naturally look for connections as part of the storytelling in the courtroom. And if somebody has a...
Well, I'm good now. I have a cart now. I was
that may very well connect with them.
For a second.
You might be willing to see things through the lens of Alex Murdaugh more than if he had not testified.
Okay, so Bob Motta, when I was watching it this morning, and you know where I stand because I was on Twitter with it, when he says, yes, I denied that I was at the kennels to sled because I was concerned they were going to consider me a suspect. But, he denied it to everybody. He denied it to all his friends, and he never knew, and even Sled didn't know until sometime later that Paul had taken that video at 8:44 that we're all talking about that showed that Alex Murdaugh was there. They had dinner at 8:20. Maggie didn't get there at 8:17. So you want to tell me who else was it that came to that Moselle property and shot Maggie and Paul if it wasn't this defendant?
I did say Barry. I said I can sympathize with Ryan thinking Alex is innocent because I went hard for Barry and nobody understood that.
It's definitely a very small window, and it have to be as if it was arranged by him in order for the timing to work out that perfectly, where he's in the house. And I'm assuming on Crosswater is going to be asking him that question, whether or not we're all assuming that he wasn't aware that Paul took the video. But, when my their phones and taking videos, I'm pretty aware that they're doing it. So
I'm not sure how he said he got back. I think he said that Paul and Maggie took the golf cart. I don't think he ever mentioned how he got back.
No, then you would assume that he never would have lied because he knew that it was on video. But the fact Paul's phone up, which I think is kind of a damning piece of evidence. Clearly he didn't really get into much of a reason why he picked it up, other than I picked it up and then I put it down. My thought is obviously he was trying to go on that he was aware of the video and he's going on and try to delete it. So I don't know. It's ultimately going to boil down to whether or not the jury feels that the state has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. They certainly, I think, have proved that he was there. They haven't really put any evidence on that he did it, but sometimes mere presence is enough.
Yeah, especially when we know a lot of people who get lied to law enforcement. And here, it's not just law enforcement, it's to all of your friends. Now, Chris, the jury heard before this a witness yesterday, Mr. Bolgadon, who was supposed to be a defense witness, but then said that the defendant was cunning. He was very cunning. There was other testimony that he was manipulative. They're hearing him in the lens of all of that. So how do
Let's bring the jury.
That hurt my ears. You might be right, K-Braze, because I may have not been paying attention that second, because I don't remember him saying how he got back to the house, but he may have said he took the golf cart back. Oh, there's going to be so many objections. So many. They did say earlier that he could be on the stand for days, so we'll see. Are they waiting for the jury to come back? I got you. I will. I will give you evidence.
Please, court.
Black out his face, though, but I will.
Mr. Murdaugh, let's start with a few things I think we can agree on.
All right, sir.
You agree that the most important part of your testimony here today is explaining live for a year and a half that you were never down at those kennels at 8:44. Would you agree with that?
I think all of my testimony is important, Mr. Waters.
Would you agree that that's an important part of your testimony?
Sure.
All right. And would you also agree that the first time that law enforcement officers that you've talked to and the prosecution and here in open court ever heard you say that you lied about being in the kennels was today in this court?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
You would agree with that? All this time later, this is the first time you've ever said that.
Yes, sir.
And you would agree with me that for years you were stealing money from clients
Yes, sir. I agree with that.
and that you were stealing from your,
Yes, sir. I agree with that.
and that had been going on since at least 2010.
I'm not sure of the exact date, but it's been going on a long time. I'll agree with
All right,
that.
what's your best guess of the date?
I'm not sure. I have,
You don't know?
I don't take a dispute with 2010. I just don't know that for sure.
All right, sure about a lot of things, but you don't know that. Is that?
Oh, is this Creighton crossing him? Creighton's feisty already. I'm surprised.
All right. Let's just keep on things that we may be able to agree about. And let's talk first about your family's legacy here in the legal profession, okay?
Talk about anything you want to.
Good. Tell me about your great-grandfather. Was he the solicitor for the very circuit that we're in?
Yes, sir.
And what was his name?
Randolph Murdaugh Sr.
Surprised he's coming in so hot.
Randolph.
Randolph. And did you ever get to know him, or did he pass before?
Oh, no, sir. He got killed in 1940.
And how long was he solicitor?
20 years.
20 years?
Yes, sir.
And then your grandfather, who was that?
Randolph Murdaugh.
And did he go by, what did he go by?
Buster. That's who Buster is named after.
And was he solicitor?
Yes, sir. He was the solicitor for 46 years. From 1940, he took over when my great-granddaddy got killed, and he served until 19. He was the longest serving prosecutor in the country.
And you knew him obviously well. He was your grandfather, correct?
Oh, I knew him extremely well and loved him dearly.
Idolized him, did you not?
Yes. You know. I
So he
loved
was the
him
chief
dearly.
prosecutor for all that time as well. Is that correct? And then your father, Mr. Randolph, he became solicitor not long after that. Is that correct?
I didn't know he was the longest serving one
When
in
my
the
grandfather
country. Wow.
retired because you weren't allowed to be solicitor after age 72, my dad took over, filled his unexpired.
And he became the chief prosecutor for this area right here as well?
Yes, sir.
And how long was he solicitor?
From 1986 until 2006.
Till 2006?
Yes, sir.
About a guy who killed a trooper.
He's a fine man.
Yes, he
And
was.
an excellent lawyer.
Yes, he was. And he was an excellent lawyer, right?
Yes, sir.
That's a big part of your family legacy and your heritage that's so ingrained around here is that history of being the chief and being part of the central part of the legal community. Is that correct? Would you agree with that?
That my family's been a central part of the legal community. Yes, sir. I agree with that.
And not only just a central part of the legal community, but the chief prosecutor for this area since 1910, I think, until 2006.
1920.
1920.
2006, 1910 is when my great-grandfather started the law
The
firm.
law firm.
Yes, sir.
All right. So 1920 to 2006, correct?
That's correct.
An unbroken chain of being the chief prosecutor here.
Correct.
And then you went to law school as well, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And when did you graduate from law school?
1994.
1994. And did you ever become a full-time solicitor?
No, sir.
And so you went into private practice, I think, with Mawson Coon, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then you
1994.
went to the former law firm that no longer exists because of your activities, correct?
I started in
Answer my
1994.
question, if you would, please, first.
What was your question?
My question was that you started first with Mawson Coon. Go ahead and answer that one.
Yes, that's correct.
And then you went to the law firm that doesn't exist anymore, that started in 19, doesn't exist anymore because of your activities, correct?
That's correct.
And as part of that, of your practice, you were a trial lawyer, correct?
That's correct.
Successful trial lawyer.
I don't know about your adjective. I was, I guess so. Yes, sir.
Did you make millions of dollars in legal fees?
Yes, sir.
But you won't tell this jury that's successful.
Well, if that's the criteria, yes, sir, I was successful.
Well, you won cases, correct?
I did win cases.
Settled cases?
Sure, I settled cases.
Heard your former law partner say that you were a successful lawyer?
I did hear some of them say that.
I think you even became president of the Trial Lawyers Association, is that right?
That's correct.
And when was that?
I'm not sure of the exact year, but it would have been in the 2015 range, 2014, 15, 16, somewhere in there.
And in that role, you were kind of the president of the Association of people who do trial plaintiffs work, right?
Yes, sir.
Who do jury trials, correct?
Well,
That's part of it, right?
Yes, sir. That's part.
Sitting down, looking jurors in the eyes and giving a closing argument. Is that right?
Yes.
And what kind of cases did you normally do? What just generally what subject matter?
I did all kinds of cases. I did cases. I mean, I handled some very big cases. I had a lot of cases where, somebody, their cable company was billing them $20 more than they should have been. And I handled everything from that to the big cases in.
All right. So the big cases, tell me about those. Those were typically plaintiffs' work, all plaintiffs' work, correct? For your big cases?
Yes.
Okay. And plaintiff's work is where, or there would be, say, for example, automobile or truck accidents, correct? Or that some of it?
Case I ever had was an automobile. No, no, sir. Not all of them were automobile wrecks.
Were many of them?
Sure.
And if they, let's say, your plaintiff collided with like a UPS truck or a tractor trailer or something like that, you've had cases like that, and they led to very big recoveries. Is that correct?
The UPS case that I handled?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. And as a part of that, developing those types of cases, you were involved in investigating the facts of the case, correct? And you were involved in gathering, let's say, telemetry data from automobiles, correct?
Telemetry data, like you presented in this courtroom this week?
Yeah. You never did that?
I've never had a case specifically where the type data that this case that I've used, but I've had data from automobiles. I've had
from essentially their computer.
OnStar data. I've had data from the black box, but specifically telemetry data, I don't believe that I've ever had one of those.
But OnStar and black box data, correct?
More so the black box. I mean, many times in a wreck, the event recorder will go back and tell you things leading up to the wreck.
Sure.
So, and I've been in numerous cases where those were involved.
And you've had cases where cell phone evidence was relevant to your case?
Sure.
People's call logs were relevant to your case?
I have had those.
Cell tower location was relevant to your case?
Yes.
Computer evidence was relevant to your case?
I'm sure I have, yes.
And when did you start with the law firm?
September of 1998.
And you've been doing essentially that kind of work, more or less, up until
That one case is really sad. The one
September.
where the kid died because they couldn't
That's
afford
correct.
the bill.
to the point to be the president of the Trial Lawyers Association.
I was the president of Trial Lawyers Association in around 2015, as we discussed.
So can we agree now on successful?
I mean, by those criteria, I was successful, certainly. I mean, we talked about a lot of my flaws here today, too. Do I? Well, no, sir. Not sitting here today, I don't. But if you want to use that term and on those criteria, I don't have any problem with you saying at that time it looked like I was successful.
Do you think people viewed you as a successful lawyer?
I'm sure there were a lot of people that did.
Do you think people viewed your family?
I believe that there were a lot of people that did. Yes, sir.
And did you think that a lot of people viewed you and your family as very prominent in the legal community here?
I never thought of myself as
I
prominent.
asked you if you thought if people viewed you that way. Let me ask you
At the
this.
time, did I think people viewed me
Yeah.
that way?
Yeah, prior to everything happening.
No, I don't think that I thought people viewed me as prominent. No, sir. I mean, like a big shot? No, sir, I don't think that.
What about your family?
That
He
my family
loves
thought we
those
were
Tic
big shots?
Tacs.
No, sir, I
Do you
definitely
whatever
don't
think
they
think
are.
that.
family is prominent in this community?
Prominent,
Yeah.
as in,
It's not a hard question.
well, I'm just not sure, you know. I think my family was very well thought of. I think my family was respected. I think my family helped a lot of people.
I'm not challenging you on any of that. I'm just getting you to agree what seems to be a basic fact. Would you agree with?
My family helped a lot of people and was well thought
Very
of.
prominent.
If that's what you mean by that, yes, sir.
And that your family had a very long association with law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
And you had a long association with law enforcement.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
By association, I assume you're talking about friendships. Yeah.
But not only just friendships, but also professional as well, correct?
As a
Professional
prosecutor,
associations with law enforcement.
as a prosecutor, or as a civil
Let's talk-
attorney?
Okay, let's talk about civil. Did you have associations with them in civil cases?
As we discussed, a lot of cases that I handled were wreck cases, or might be a train wreck or tractor trailer, but there were a lot of highway patrolmen involved. There were a lot of local law enforcement involved. So yeah, we dealt with a lot of law enforcement in the civil practice.
All right. And then you also mentioned, correct?
I was a volunteer assistant solicitor.
Did you or your family or your law firm ever have events or parties or social affairs in which the law enforcement community in this area was invited?
I mean, sure, the law firm itself didn't really sponsor things like that. But there would be occasions where one of us in the law firm, and certainly we all had a lot of friends in law enforcement, and they were always invited.
Okay. And a lot of friends in law enforcement, your family and you had a long association with the law enforcement community in this circuit. Is that correct?
Association being friendships and working relationships, absolutely.
All right, well, let's talk about being a prosecutor. When did you become an assistant solicitor?
I'm an assistant solicitor when I moved from Beaufort to Hampton. So that would have been September, sometime around September 1998. Might have been a little bit after that, but sometime.
Did you get a badge when you became an assistant solicitor?
At some point I did, yes, sir.
And who gave you?
My father.
Mr. Randolph?
Yes, sir.
And over the years, did you prosecute criminal cases, much as what's going on here today?
Yes, sir. At times I did.
And
I believe that I prosecuted from 1998, and I believe that
2001? Keep going, I'm sorry.
2021, I'm sorry, until 2021. From 1998, 2021, I believe I was involved in 5 jury, I believe there were 5 trials.
5 trials?
Is the best that I can remember. And
You
that
had-
my dad, that was really the purpose of me being assistant solicitor, was get to spend time with him, do things with him.
Sure. And you, 5 jury trials over all that time, but you had a badge that entire time, is that correct?
I had a badge for a big part of that time, yes, sir.
You actually had 2 badges, right?
I had 1 badge, but when my granddad became an assistant solicitor,
After his ethics as a lawyer?
when my dad became the solicitor, he had an assistant solicitor's badge.
Right.
When he passed away, I had his badge, and that was one of, at some point in time, you were asking some, and that was the other badge.
I got you. You said you did 5 criminal jury trials as a prosecutor, correct?
Assisted in those, or was doing them, yes, sir. I believe I was actually the lead lawyer in one of them. I helped my dad in the other 4.
Still part of,
Sir,
part of gathering the evidence and putting it together for trial?
in a criminal case, we didn't do much of the gathering of the evidence. We took what law enforcement had gathered, but
But putting it together for the criminal trial, correct?
yes, sir.
Presenting evidence in court? Giving jury argument?
I did the closing argument in one of them, yes, sir.
Did you ever have any cases that you prosecuted that went short of a jury trial, either pled out or were dismissed for some reason?
You know, I'm sure that at some point over between 2000 and 21, that I took some plea, but as we sit here today, I can't specifically remember that. And I don't ever remember working a case up for trial that didn't go to trial. But I'm sure at some point in time, I was involved in some level on a guilty plea or guilty pleas.
And you'd agree with me that the civil system and the criminal system have a lot of differences, correct?
A lot of differences and a lot of similarities.
And a lot of similarities, and that's where I was going next. And fundamentally, it's about analyzing the evidence, preparing for trial, presenting that case, your argument to the jury, correct?
That's a big part of it.
Okay. And would you agree, or as you are preparing for trial, that you analyze the evidence that's been gathered by law enforcement, present the evidence that that supports your case, correct? That's just part of it.
Presenting evidence that you deem favorable for your position?
Yeah, that you analyze the evidence and then you put in the evidence that supports your case. It's an ongoing process. Would you agree with that?
That's part of what you do.
And same thing in the civil case. As you go along, you may have evidence, but you ultimately analyze that evidence, and some evidence makes the cut and some of it does not. Is that fair to say?
As far as what you're trying to, I think we agree on that.
We would agree on that.
I think so. I'm not exactly sure what your question is. Understand it?
I'm just asking you that as a lawyer, as you've been since 1994, is that right?
That's correct.
It's a simple question. You analyze the evidence that's been gathered, whether civil or criminal, and then present that in court. Is that correct?
Yes,
All right.
that's part of
And
what
that
you
is
do.
an ongoing process as you prepare for a case. Is that correct?
An ongoing process as you prepare for, in criminal courts or civil courts?
Either one.
Well, I mean, but there's a distinction, because in civil court, you have the deadlines, and so you aren't allowed to gather evidence during a trial or a week before a trial. Or, for instance, if this was a civil trial and we found that OnStar data during the 3rd or 4th week of trial, you wouldn't be able to use it because you're past deadlines. But in a criminal case, you are able to use it.
But you would agree that none of that was the fault of anyone on this side of the table. They responded they had nothing and then responded all of a sudden that they did.
I don't have an opinion, and that's certainly not anything I'm intending to convey.
You talked to this jury a lot about that, but you know nothing about that particular part of it. Is that what you're telling us?
talk.
You talked to the jury a lot about GM data, but you're telling me that you're unaware
Why
that GM initially responded to law enforcement's timely request and said they didn't have that, but then in the course of the trial, all of a sudden came up and said, you know what, we found something, and that's the reason why it arrived late. So you don't know anything about that after talking to the jury about that?
I don't know a single thing about that. I know that y'all represented that to the court, and I don't to doubt it.
Good.
But I don't.
And you would agree that that's generally consistent with the telemetry data that the FBI did, correct? The OnStar data.
The OnStar, I think the OnStar data and the telemetry data are totally different.
All right, you don't think they're generally consistent with one another? Is that what you're telling the jury?
No, I'm not telling the jury anything about that. I'm just saying, do I think they're consistent? I think the OnStar data gives you one set of information, and the telemetry data gives you another set.
Okay. But you don't think they're consistent? I mean, you talked about it to this jury. I think we're struggling on what seems to be a fairly simple point. Don't you agree?
Mr. Warden, I'm just trying to answer your question. Right. And I'm not trying to be difficult. My understanding of what you're referring to as the telemetry data is when the car goes into park and drive and that sort of thing. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
And the GPS information is telling you where a vehicle is on a certain path.
Correct.
So I think that they're two different types of information.
The question was, were they consistent with one another?
I guess so. I don't think they contradict each other.
All right. Thank you. All right. You were the breadwinner for your family, correct? For your immediate family.
Yes.
And that included obviously for Maggie, correct?
I'm sorry?
That included for Maggie, correct?
Absolutely.
And in large measure for Buster and Paul as well. Would you agree with that?
That I was the breadwinner.
The primary breadwinner, yes.
No, I was their source of. I was the source of income for Maggie, Buster, and Paul.
Okay.
I mean, I guess as they got older, there's some point where Buster had a job, but I mean, I would still consider myself the provider for
Didn't Paul work with his brother too?
Again, there's no trick here. I'm just trying to ask a simple question.
Mr. Waters, I don't think that was a trick. Okay. So.
Breadwinner, we can agree on that.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Give me 1 second. All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State 570 to see if you recognize this particular item. You can go ahead and take it out of the badge.
All right, sir.
You know what that is?
Yes, sir.
That's 571.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then I'm going to show you what was in the bag in 570. Can you tell me what that is?
I can.
All right. What is that? 570. What is that?
All right. 571 is what I would consider to be my badge.
All right. And then what is this one right here, which is 570?
Okay. 570 would be the one I told you about, was my grandfather's badge after he retired, when he became an assistant for my dad.
Your Honor, this time I'm 71 and 570 in the evidence.
Yeah, I admit it.
All right. Where did you keep 570? The one that was your grandfather's?
It didn't have a single place that it was kept.
You know where it was recovered by law enforcement?
No, sir.
Would you dispute if it was recovered out of the Mercedes you were driving on September 4th, the day of the side of the road
Thank
incident?
you, Sarah. You didn't have to do that.
Yeah, the Elmo, please.
Of course.
On the screen, please.
Thank
And
you again,
571.
Brian. And my
Would you keep
son
listening?
opted out of a Slurpee, and he
Usually
got
in my car.
Where in your car?
Hot Wheels
It
cards.
could be all of it could be on the dash, like
Total
you were
me up
talking to
$5.
Mark all
So he
about.
got 5 Hot
So
Wheels.
it could be in the cup holder, be on the seat, be on
He got some
usually
candy.
in the front seat, but in my car is where I tried to keep it.
All right. And when you had it in your dash, would you have it face up or face down?
I didn't have any particular manner in anywhere.
There was no rhyme or reason to it, is what you're telling the jury? How you had it in the dash?
There may be occasions where I had it in the dash for some particular reason, but there were a lot of times where it probably was in the dash for no particular reason, other than that's where I put it. Just like I put it on the shoulder.
What was in the dash? His badge? Is that like the thing where the cops won't pull you over if you got it?
You said there were particular reasons why you might put it in the dash. What would those reasons be?
I mean, it could be any number of things. If I'm going somewhere where I want somebody to see it, then I would put it in the dash. If
Oh, I won't remove it. He'll have a heart attack if I do.
There's
He has his
another
own little bag. When we go to the
reason
store, we
for
give him his own bag.
somebody to see it,
Stuff in
like for instance, if I get pulled over, have it in the cup holder so an officer could see it when he walked up.
Why would you do that? Why would you have it in the cup holder? You're not saying you were on official business, are you?
No, I'm not saying I'm on official business.
Why would you want it in a cup holder if you got pulled over?
All right, I might be
Because
muted for a little bit because I'm in my
that
car
law
and I have a
enforcement
custom exhaust on this
oftentimes
car. So when I'm
is friendlier
hitting the pedal,
when
it's kind of
you're in
loud.
law
So,
enforcement.
When you're law enforcement,
but I only got like a 2-minute
you
drive.
considered yourself law enforcement?
No, sir, I can't say that I considered myself law enforcement.
Well, you carried a badge on you, solicitor, for 2 decades roughly?
From around 98, so
Is that
yes, sir, for
correct?
2 decades.
And you would ride with it sometimes sitting in the front dash facing out, correct?
That's correct.
And you would put it in the cup holder so that law enforcement would see you if you got pulled over, right?
That's correct.
But you didn't consider yourself law enforcement.
I personally didn't consider myself to be law enforcement, no, sir.
All right. So you were just using having this badge to your advantage and taking license with it. Is that correct?
I guess in some circumstances that is accurate.
So is a badge like one of those things that like you put on your license plate, the little star thing, so that the police don't
See if you
mess
could
with
use
you?
it to get away with something, correct? Get better treatment if you got pulled over.
Get better treatment if I got pulled over. I mean, that's probably a fair statement. That, yeah, if saw that, yeah, I'd say that's true.
Did you have to take an oath when you got that badge?
No, sir.
You didn't?
Not that I remember. I don't recall taking one, like going somewhere and raising my hand.
Raising your hand and saying, I promise to do my duty.
Oh no shit!
You
So
never
he
had to do
got
that?
like a actual police
Well,
badge.
Mr. Waters, if I did, I sure don't recall it. I mean, it was a very
Oh, my
informal
God.
process when I became assistant solicitor for my dad. And then when I continued with Duffy, I mean, at some point, if I took any oath at all that I can remember, it would be on some paper that I don't specifically remember doing that.
All right. Well, let's talk about it. Let's go back to 571. And on the inside of it, what are those right there? Those the an ID card with your picture on it?
Yes, sir, that is.
At the top, on that top, leave it in there if you would, please. Can you not see it?
I can, but I was just gonna see what's on the back.
Okay.
All right, sir.
All right, and it's got your picture on it, got your name on it?
Yes, sir, that does have my picture and my name.
All right. Good. Put that one back for me, please.
All right. So you
If
want to
you
look at
ask
this top?
Hub,
Look at the
I
top.
do drive like a maniac.
What office does it say that you are on that top one right?
Like 2 weeks ago, he had a break.
State of South Carolina solicitor, the solicitor of the 14th
to
Judicial
bend metal with, and it's heavy.
solicitor of the
Yeah, it's
14th
like
Judicial
500
Circuit.
pounds.
I do hereby
I turned the
certify
corner,
that.
and the whole
Good
thing
night.
slid off and was hanging by the straps. I had to
all
pull
that
over.
data,
What position does it say that you're appointed to?
as the, okay, it says that as 14th Judicial Circuit, I do certify that Richard A. Murdaugh was on July 1st, 2013, appointed as the Deputy Solicitor of Allendale, Beaufort, Colleton, Hampton, and Jasper counties in and is authorized to enforce the laws in the 14th Judicial Circuit of South Carolina.
All right, awesome. Can I hold it back?
And it's signed by Duffy Stone.
Signed by Duffy Stone. So deputy solicitor, is that correct?
I was never a deputy solicitor, Mr. Waters. That's what that says, but I've never been a deputy solicitor. Unless deputy solicitor is, I was a volunteer assistant solicitor. And as far as I know, Sean, deputy solicitor that Duffy Stone had.
And it's a simple point. It says deputy solicitor, but deputy solicitor is a higher rank than assistant solicitor, correct? To your understanding?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And that was Sean Thornton. I've never been deputy solicitor, even though that does say that.
All right.
I agree with. And that was signed by, not by me.
I understand. This is what was given to you.
That's what was given to.
I went through this whole long thing at the beginning about whether or not you had an association with the law enforcement.
I didn't even
community.
realize that you would get a badge if you were the
Right.
solicitor. I had no
Successful,
idea.
correct?
Well, no, sir. I believe we got to this because you were asking me if I took an oath, and I don't remember taking an oath. And then you started asking me about these things.
Okay. And you agree that this card says deputy solicitor, right?
I agree that card says deputy solicitor.
All right. Would you agree with me that it says on the back that it is reposing special trust and confidence, care, prudence, and integrity? Is that what it says on the back of this?
I mean, if you're, no, sir. I mean, I trust, if you're reading that off the back of that, I assume that it does. You were reading off of the one that Duffy Stone gave me, correct?
Yeah.
I hope they have his oath.
You want me to bring it back to you?
No, sir. I think I can see
I
it.
mean, I'd imagine
That
you'd have to
was-
sign something, right?
That's okay. I mean, I know what it is. I looked at it when you handed it to me. So the card on the bottom I got from Duffy Stone. The one on the top, and the one on the top should give you a better. There we go. All right. So the one on the top was what came from my dad when he was. The one on the bottom is what came from Duffy Stone when he was solicitor. And Duffy Stone took over after my dad retired in 2006. Duffy Stone filled my dad's the rest of his unexpired 4-year term, much like my dad filled my, Duffy became the solicitor.
Did you ever have lights in your vehicle?
In the particular vehicle?
No, in any vehicle.
Yes, sir, I did.
Was that a government vehicle?
No, sir, it was not.
When did you have lights, like blue lights and stuff?
Yes, sir, I had some blue lights.
When did you have lights? And let remember, you did 5 cases over 20 years, and you had blue lights in your vehicle, but it was your private vehicle, correct?
Well, it was the vehicle that I drove. It was law firm owned vehicle.
The law firm's own vehicle. So how'd you get blue lights in there?
I had them installed.
And who installed them?
I believe Eddie Gibson installed them.
And who was that?
He's the guy who apparently does blue light work for most of the sheriff's departments.
Y'all
in
would
the
not
14th
believe
Circuit,
what
a
I
lot
did.
And when did you have that installed? Do you recall? Was it one vehicle or more than one vehicle? Let's start with that.
I believe I had blue lights in one vehicle.
And when did you have that
I
installed?
left
Do you think?
my trunk
sure.
window.
Would've been
5 years, 10 years?
No,
But like the
give you a
window.
time frame.
Okay.
The vehicle that I was in on that got taken in on June the 7th, I got that vehicle sometime around late December or January. So I had it for 6 months. I would have had the previous vehicle for 5 years. That's how long we kept vehicles in the law firm. So I would have had it for 5 years. And sometime during that 5-year period, I had lights installed.
Did you ask the sheriff at the time if you could do that?
I did.
Who was that?
I believe it was T.C. Smalls. And I believe in Colleton, it was Andy Strickland.
In Colleton, it was Andy Strickland.
And I believe in Allendale, it was Tom Carter.
Were you friends with Andy Strickland?
Yeah, I was friends with Andy Strickland.
And you said, hey, I'm going to get some blue lights installed in my vehicle. And he said, that's cool. Or words to that effect.
I mean, that doesn't sound like the words that he would have used or I would have used, but I certainly asked him and he certainly said it was okay.
It was okay. All right.
So he could have drove around all that time with like whatever he wanted in his car and they wouldn't have bothered him.
Along with Sheriff Smalls and I believe Sheriff Carter. I'm not positive about Sheriff Carter, but I believe so.
I'm going to show you just real quick what's been marked as States 507. Let's see if you recognize that.
I believe this is my Suburban. Yeah, this is my Suburban that y'all had.
Okay. Does that look like where your badge was on the day of the incident?
I have no idea.
You don't recall putting it there?
No, but I don't take issue with the fact that it's. I don't take issue with the fact that it's there. If that's it was found it. And that's a picture.
Your Honor, Dr. States 507 in the evidence.
Submitted.
Oh no, what happened? Hold on. This kid is in my damn room. Hold on. Aunt, did you go in my streaming room? Why did it go away? I'm fixing it. Hold on, I'm home.
And this jury, of course, has heard multiple recorded statements of you during the course of this. Did you ever refer to Paul as Paw Paw during that?
Did you touch something in there?
I don't know.
Do you recall?
How I referred to I can say Paul if you prefer that.
No, you can call him whatever you want. I'm just asking you if you ever called him that during the course of that entire investigation, or is that also the first time today, at least publicly?
Is today the first time I've called my son Paul? No, sir, that is not correct.
Have you ever called him that on all the recorded statements that this jury has heard?
I don't know.
You ever called Rogan Roro?
I
And
called
all
him
the
Roro
recorded statements.
all the time.
It was my kid.
And the
I don't
recorded
know how the
statements.
hell he managed to figure out how to turn
And I
off my
called him
stream.
Rogan
but he
also,
did.
so I don't know. But I'm happy to call him Rogan, and I'm happy to call Paul.
All right, well, let's talk about, and I'll be specific with the boat wreck criminal case and the boat wreck civil case, okay? Is that
Yes,
fair?
sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
So
And
he sugared up. That's why he touched the computer.
we've talked a little bit about your badge. Did you have your badge with you on the night of the boat wreck?
On the night of the boat wreck, did I have it with me?
Yeah.
When?
Did you go to the hospital that night?
I did go to the hospital that night.
Did you have it with you then?
I don't know, but I don't believe so. But I really
You
don't
don't
know.
believe so?
But
When you went to the hospital on the night of the boat wreck, were you acting in any official capacity?
the night of when I went to the hospital, was I in an official capacity?
Yes.
No, sir.
Okay. I'll show you what's been marked as states 569. And do you recognize the person on the right?
Wanka. I love when British people say wanka.
I don't
Or
recognize
wanker.
him.
It sounds like they say a wanka.
Oh, me?
You?
Yeah, it looks like me.
All right. What's hanging out of your pocket in plain view?
Looks like a badge.
You didn't recall that until I just showed you that picture?
No, sir, I did not.
Your Honor, it offer states 569 in the evidence.
Admitted.
That's you in the white shirt, is that right?
Yes, sir, it is.
And this is the badge hanging out of your pocket? You remember which, is that correct?
Looks to be, yes, sir.
Which badge is that? Which one of the two, do you remember?
Nah, you can't tell from here.
Okay. And why'd you have it hanging out of your pocket like that?
I don't remember having that. No, I don't know.
You don't remember that?
I don't remember that, no, sir.
Did you generally walk around with your badge hanging out of your pocket?
Generally speaking, no, sir, I did not.
Or only when you wanted some advantage from it?
Did I
you want some advantage from wearing it like that?
Did I hang it out in my pocket when I wanted an advantage?
Yes.
I may have. Certainly may have.
What advantage did you want?
When?
Then?
I don't even recall this, Mr. Waters, but if I was wanting some advantage, as you say it, I guess, and I don't remember this, but I guess I would want, as I said, a badge has a warming effect with other law enforcement. And so if I was seeking any advantage, as you say, then I guess that would be what it was.
Do you ever want to be the solicitor?
Yeah, they were.
Did you ever want to be the solicitor?
Yeah,
The
there
elected
was
solicitor?
there was a time period when I absolutely did.
When was that?
Prior to around the time prior to my dad retiring.
Prior to 2006?
Yes, sir.
How long did you explore that?
I mean, I wanted to be a solicitor for a long time, but, you know, at the time when my dad retired, I
Prior to
was
him starting to realize he could steal
struggling with
money and
this,
get away with
and
it, and that being a solicitor would probably
I knew
make
I
it
couldn't do
harder
it.
for him to do that.
2006.
Yes, sir.
We'll talk more about the pills in a bit, but you say you're already struggling with pills in 2006, correct?
That's correct.
But over that next 15 years, you still were able to maintain a lucrative law practice. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And you've already testified that all your law partners had no idea of this pill problem that you had all that time, correct?
I'm testifying that I believe, in fact, I'm certain that none of my partners knew.
You remember going to do that?
Yes.
And was your badge hanging out when you did that as well?
You know, I wouldn't think so, Mr. Waters, but like I say, I don't think so.
All right. So it just comes naturally to put your badge out when something like this that you don't even remember why you did that.
No, I don't even remember having my badge. And I specifically know that I didn't use the badge. You know, did I mean to do this? I'm not saying that I didn't, but I don't know if I was putting it in my pocket and the flap, you know, you notice that that flap is not Velcro down. I don't know. I don't have a specific memory of that. And I never went around, you know, acting like I was on official business.
So you're saying it might be an accident that your badge was hanging out there?
I'm saying that I have no memory of that whatsoever.
All right. Well, you never use these badges as like a wallet, right?
No, I did.
You did?
I did.
So you're saying you have cards and all your stuff in there?
No, sir.
Yeah.
No, sir. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that on that night. You just asked me if I ever used it as a wallet, and there were times when I used it as a wallet.
Were you using it as a wallet that night?
I don't remember, but I don't think so. I didn't use it as a wallet very often, and I didn't use it as a wallet for very long when I did use it as a wallet.
So let's see if we can get back to what we agree on. So you would agree that you had to make a conscious decision to grab that badge and when you went into the hospital, correct? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, at some point I had to make a conscious decision to pick it up.
But you're saying you don't know if you hung it out like that on purpose while you're talking to that law enforcement officer, or if it's just an accident that is hanging out of your pocket in full view of everyone.
Well, I am saying that because that is not how I would normally carry a badge. And even if I wanted to give somebody an impression, to me, that's got kind of an obnoxious look to it. That's just not something that, I mean, that's not something I would typically do. But I may have done it that night. I have no memory of that.
Okay. All right. So you're saying that just could be an accident that it's hanging out like that?
I'm saying it could be, or I could have put it there like that.
All right.
I don't remember.
Did you generally just walk around with it in your pocket? Or would you only carry it when you wanted to use it for something?
No, I wouldn't generally carry it around in my pocket just any time.
Okay. All right. All right. So we got the badge that may be accidentally hanging out of your pocket. You won't concede that you did that purposefully.
I mean, Mr. Waters, if you want me to say I did that on purpose, I don't have a problem with that. I'm saying I don't remember that. All right. So can I tell you that I did that on purpose? No, sir, I can't. Can I say that this happened by accident? No, sir, I can't. What I can say is I don't remember it, and that's not how I would normally, that's just not how I would normally, you know, that's just not, it's not something I did. That's not a normal thing. So I don't know.
Okay. All right. That's fine. You won't concede to this jury that there was any intention or purpose to you doing that at the hospital on the night of the boat wreck.
I'm saying I don't remember using that badge. And I specifically remember, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead. You can ask.
You specifically remember what?
That like when I went into the room with the kids, did I pull my badge out? And I know that I did not do that.
No, because it was on your pocket like that, correct?
It's on my pocket like that right then.
Did you use that to get into areas that shouldn't be accessed by non-official personnel?
No, absolutely not. I mean, there was nowhere that I went that that was not truly public domain. I mean, basically, the places that I went to were, when I got there, I went to Paw Paw. When I left Paw Paw, I went to Morgan Dowdy, who was like a daughter to Maggie and I, had dated Paul for a long time. And I went to Morgan. Morgan had an injury to her hand that was bad. She was very upset about Mallory. And they were working on her, so I left her room. I went back to Paw Paw. At some point in time, I noted I went to Connor's room, and I believe those are the only rooms I went to. But again, I can't tell you that with certainty.
While you're wearing that badge like that, did any of the kids who were in the boat wreck not to cooperate with law enforcement?
I never told anybody not to cooperate with law enforcement, whether I had a badge hanging out my pants, didn't have a badge, or any point in time did I tell anybody don't cooperate with law enforcement.
Did you become aware in 2021, shortly before June, that an investigation into the investigation of that night had begun, as well as your conduct?
Yes, I did learn of that.
Okay.
I don't know the status of that investigation, being that I've been charged with so many things and haven't been charged with that. I'm assuming that there may not be charges.
Whether or not you were aware that that had begun in the spring of 2020.
Yes, sir. I was aware. Well, at some point in time, I became aware of it. Was that the spring? Was it, February, March, April? I know it was after I know it was after that night, and it was before June 7th.
Before June 7th.
I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure that I already knew that.
Did I?
On June the 7th.
You mentioned Andy Strickland. Do you know what happened to him?
Do I know what happened to him when?
How he lost his job? As sheriff?
I believe that when he was I don't know if he resigned or he was suspended.
Okay. Do you remember if that was a few months prior to you becoming aware of an investigation into the investigation of this boat case, including you?
Do I know what now?
Andy Strickland was charged and lost his job. Was that a few months prior to you becoming aware of the investigation into this incident that's on the screen?
A few months prior? I don't really know this for a fact, but I believe here today, I believe that Andy was charged back in the fall. And like I said, we learned about when I've testified about when I understood there was an investigation into whether or not acting in a public manner or whatever it was y'all were investigating, public corruption or that. So if it was a couple of months, if it was a month or two when Andy Strickland got charged, if you show me that, I'd be surprised, because I think he was charged before that.
All right. But this was a friend of yours, correct? The guy who you asked if you could put lights in your car in a private vehicle, correct?
Well, Andy, yeah, I considered TC a friend, and I considered Tom Carter a friend,
Sure.
All of whom I asked if I could put lights in the vehicle.
All right. And
So yes, sir. And I considered Andy a friend.
would you at least agree with me that in at least the fall of 2020, your friend Andy Strickland was indicted and lost his job for a financial and corruption investigation?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
response.
Your Honor, I think there's a link between
Perhaps there hasn't
his
been a lot of
knowledge of that
objections
and
so
what he's
far.
admitted that there was an investigation going on months prior to the murders.
Anything further?
I mean, the question is something about Andy Strickland being indicted. I just don't see the relevance, Your Honor.
I sustain the objection.
All right. We can at least agree that you were aware prior to the murders that there was this investigation, correct? The one on the screen. The one related to the boat, the investigation into the boat case.
Was I aware that y'all had started an investigation into what I did in the hospital prior to the June the 7th?
Yes.
I believe that to be correct.
All right.
And if it wasn't before that, it was shortly after it.
You testified, you've had a pill addiction for approximately 20 years, correct?
I think that's about right.
And so when did you start stealing money from clients? How long did it take before you started doing that?
I'm not sure when the first time I did that is.
You don't know?
No, sir.
You haven't gone back and thought about that?
Well, sure, I've thought about it, but to be able to sit here, I mean, you got to understand, I've been in rehab and I've been in jail, and I don't have access. You know, all my telephone calls were put on the media, so I haven't had a lot of phone access. I haven't had a lot of access. So as we sit here today, I cannot tell you the exact time. I don't deny that I did it, but I can't tell you the exact time that I first did it.
And you told this jury that's the cause of your financial problems?
Did I say that
Your opiate addiction was the cause of your financial problems?
it was certainly a cause, yes,
A
sir.
cause, not the only cause though, correct?
No, I wouldn't think it was the only cause, but yeah, it was certainly a cause.
You recall testimony in this courtroom about how you had some land deals go bad around the time of the recession in 2008, 2009?
Sure.
And you recall testimony from your law partners in this courtroom that you had some big cases that they thought cured those issues, correct?
I heard them say that, yes, sir.
Do you disagree with that?
Do I disagree with what they thought? No, I mean, I don't have any
You
reason.
disagree if that was true?
That they thought, that my partners thought that, that I gotten past my financial difficulties. I have no reason to dispute that, Mr. Waters. I'm not
Was
trying to
that true?
frustrate you.
Was what they thought true?
Past my financial difficulties?
He's eating sushi with me right now.
Was it true that I was past my financial
He's the
difficulties?
pickiest kid, but he likes sushi.
I mean, they were certainly better after that, but I mean, no, I don't think I was
down for some
past
Five
them.
Guys. I'm
No,
gonna
sir.
make shepherd's pie tonight.
What was the first big case after the recession that you had?
Five Guys after school tomorrow.
Big case was.
You remember
what date?
All right, well, let's go with the Pinckney case. Do you remember when that was?
I remember generally speaking when it was, yes, sir.
What year was that? 2011? Would you dispute that?
2011, when it ended?
When you got recoveries in that case?
I mean, if you're looking at something that tells me that, I have no reason to dispute that. But I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's certainly in the time frame.
It's fine, Mr. Murdaugh. We'll go through it. Let's do it.
Mr. Waters, like I said, I take you at that. I just don't know off the top of my head.
All right.
I don't have a reason to dispute that.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been admitted into evidence as states 331. Let's go with, actually, 332, 333, and 334. Do you recognize those documents?
It doesn't fill me up either, but I love the taste of it, so I get it for like a craving like once a week.
Do you recognize it?
I do.
All right. And just, what are those? Those are disbursement sheets. Can I have them back, please?
Yes, sir. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah. Take your time.
Just trying to see which ones.
I'm very specific about my sushi, though.
I mean, there's some things about it that I'm curious about, but
Yeah, we'll
you
talk
ask
about that.
questions.
We'll talk about that. All right. Let's talk about, let's start with Natasha Thomas. Do you remember her?
I do.
How old was she when she became your client?
I'm not sure. She was young.
She was a teenager?
I'm not sure, but I know she was young.
She was underage, correct?
Yes, she was underage. I do believe that.
All right.
In fact, I know that.
And can you tell me what she was injured in this wreck in an automobile wreck, correct?
Yes,
And the company Michelin, that was one of the defendants for an alleged tire issue, is that correct?
that is correct.
All right. And do you remember how much Natasha Thomas got in that particular case? And I can show it to you on 334. You remember how much she got?
I believe it shows
Yeah.
$2 million.
$2 million. All right. And how much were your or PMPD's fees that would be attributed to you in that out of that $2 million?
$800,000.
$800,000.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir. All right. And so that would be $800,000 in fees that would get attributed to you. That has nothing to do with the money that you subsequently stole from that teenager. Correct?
The $800,000 is different from money that I stole?
Yes.
That's correct.
All right. So you got $800,000 attributed to you with the firm, but that was not enough. You also stole money from that teenager. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. When you did that, did you sit down with her, much as you sat down with this jury, and explain to her what was going on while you were stealing her money?
That would be the normal process, but I certainly don't remember specifically doing that.
That would be the normal process, correct?
That would be. It may be a little different with a teenager, but certainly, I mean,
You would sit down with them across the table and go through these documents, correct?
if abnormal, yes, sir.
All right. And then you would explain to them what was going on and how they were getting everything they were entitled to, correct?
If I was the one doing it, yes, sir.
And you would look them in the eye while you did that, correct?
It wouldn't be unusual for me to look them in the eye.
While you were doing some fast talking to a teenager, correct?
I certainly was not telling her the truth. I don't know if I was talking fast or slow, but I wasn't telling the truth.
All right. Well, you ultimately convinced her that there was nothing amiss here, right? While you were stealing her money, correct?
I don't know if I convinced her that nothing was amiss or misled her, but I admit candidly in all of these cases, Mr. Waters, that I took money that was not mine and I shouldn't have done it. I hate the fact that I did it. I'm embarrassed by it. I'm embarrassed for my son. I'm embarrassed for my family. And I knew that I did it.
I understand that. But
And
you
so-
understand that we have to ask about these things because we've heard about it in a very academic paperwork manner. But every single one of these, you had to sit down and look somebody in the eye and convince them that you were on their side when you were not, correct? That's what you did in every.
Every time.
Answer my question, yes or no, and then you can explain. I'll let you explain all day long.
Well, no, sir, that may or may not be true. And Mr. Waters, just to try to get through this quicker, I admit.
I know you want to get through it quicker, but we're not. So answer the question, please.
What I admit is that I misled them and that I stole their money. Now, this is something, what's the date on that one?
I'll bring it back to you.
Well, you can tell me. I trust you to tell me accurately.
All right. Well, it's kind of funny. It doesn't have the date on it, but I'll let you take a look at it.
I'm just looking at the date of a check. So that's December 20th. So that goes 2011. So that gives us a ballpark. So that's 12 years ago. For me to sit here and tell you specifically that I remember sitting down and talking with Natasha Thomas, I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you, and I can tell you that I didn't do right by Natasha Thomas. I took money from Natasha Thomas that didn't belong to me, and I was wrong for doing that.
Okay.
And I admit that.
And I know, Mr. Murdaugh, that you would like for it just to be as simple as that, just to say, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I stole money, and have that be the end of it. But in these cases.
All right, I'm back for a little bit.
Comment, Your Honor.
Just testify that you would like to just admit that. And make this quick, correct? Isn't that what you said? Isn't that what you implied?
No, sir, Mr. Waters. You have charged me with murdering my wife and my son, and I've sat here for all these weeks listening to stuff that I did wrong, that I'm embarrassed by. I'm happy to talk to you about as much of that as you want to talk about. I'm required to talk about it as much as you want to talk about it. But the fact is I cannot specifically remember sitting down, the details that you're asking me for. I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is that in all these financial situations, I stole money that was not my money. I misled people that I shouldn't have misled, and I did wrong.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. I will definitely.
I can tell you that. And I may be able to tell you specifically
like
in some instances what I did or didn't do.
We'll do that.
This is
But
why I can never
the point
sleep.
that I'm
I get
asking
home,
you
I
is,
gotta hubby needs a tail.
it's not just as simple as some
He's got
paperwork. You
insulation
had to
all over
sit
his
down and deal with
clothes.
these people and convince them
Gotta
that
get the
you were
washer
telling them the
set up.
truth in order to steal this money.
My son wants
Correct?
sushi and a popsicle.
That may not
Good
be
now.
true because in some situations, I may not have had to do that. They just trusted me to do it.
Okay.
So that's my point is I misled them. There's no question about that. But did I sit down in each particular instance and like you're breaking it down step by step? I can't say that. I can say I did wrong. I stole money that wasn't mine.
So he stole
And I
that
shouldn't have
much
done it.
that he can't remember stuff. Like,
And it was
he did
terrible
so
what I
often
did.
That
All right,
he
well, let's
can't
look at stage
remember
330.
doing each individual.
This is Arthur Badger and the EPS case, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You remember what the total recovery was in that particular case? There were multiple plaintiffs. Let me ask you that first. There were multiple plaintiffs in that case, correct?
That's correct.
And do you remember what the total
Getting
recovery
very
was?
annoyed, it seems.
Not exactly, but I mean, I know generally.
All right. Was it $12 million? Would you disagree with that?
Is it $12 million? I mean, if you tell me it was $12 million, then I believe you, but I thought it was a little bit more than that.
All right.
It looks like he's about
And
to pop.
if ultimately, if you have multiple plaintiffs, how do you decide as the plaintiff's lawyer, or how does it work out that amounts of that total recovery get allocated to individual plaintiffs?
Cases are different ways.
Is it true that often the defense attorneys, the civil defense attorneys, will ask the plaintiff's attorneys how you want that allocated?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. Is that what happened in the Badger case?
I can't remember exactly how we came to that.
Who was the deep pocket in the Badger case? Do you remember? The defendant that had the money that you ultimately recovered from, the vast majority. Do you remember?
Well, it was UPS, and I believe it was, I can't remember if it was corporate or if there was insurance, but it was certainly UPS was the major defendant.
Okay.
But I believe Arthur Badger was the defendant. I can't remember. I know UPS was.
Did you sit down with him and explain this paperwork that you were using to steal his money?
I Arthur Badger.
And managed to convince him that nothing was amiss while at the same time stealing money?
I believe I did.
And did you allocate millions of dollars to Arthur Badger personally while only telling him that his recovery was going to be around $300,000?
Yes, sir.
And on this exhibit, 330 sat down and looked him in the eye with all this stuff on here and fast talked him past these figures so that he believed you and left thinking that you had done him right.
I
Did that-
believe that I sat down with Arthur Badger, and I know that I missed, and I'm sure at some point during that conversation that I looked him in the eye.
Going back to States 333, Hakeem Pinckney, do you remember him?
I do.
What happened to him?
He was injured in the same wreck that Natasha Thomas was injured in.
Was he badly injured?
Very
He was.
sad. His case. He died.
How
Yes, I mean, he was terribly injured. He became a, I can't remember what level, but he was a quadriplegic.
you remember what the total recovery amount was for him?
Not off the top of my head, no, sir.
All right, well, let me show you States 333. And see what the total, if you recall, what the total recovery was in that case.
It looks like it was $10,245,000.
And that was for Hakeem, correct?
That's correct.
And how much of that was the attorney's fees that would have gone to PMPED that would have been attributed?
$4,098,000.
$4 million in legal fees that you would have gotten from this settlement. Is that correct?
$4,098,000. Yes, sir.
And in the end, that wasn't enough for you, correct? Was that enough for you?
Was that enough for me in that case?
Yeah.
I mean,
Was over $4 million in legal fees that you received that would have been attributable to you through the law firm at the end of the year, whatever it worked out to be, but you would have been credited with over for that. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And was that enough for you?
Was that enough for me?
Mhm. Or did you take more
Oh, no,
from?
I took monies from Hakeem Pinckney that did not belong to me, that I should not have taken.
Been rendered a paraplegic.
No, sir, he was a quadriplegic. Yes, sir.
You ultimately take money from his mother Pamela as well.
I believe that I did.
You remember how much money you took from Hakeem?
No, sir, not off the top of my head. I do not.
If I told you it was over $370,000, would you agree with that?
If that's what the records show, I don't dispute that.
Do you remember how much you took from the teenager Natasha Thomas in addition to your legal fees?
Not off the top of,
If I told you it was over $350,000, would you agree with that?
I don't dispute it.
Do you remember how much you took from Arthur Badger?
Not off the top of my head, no, sir.
If it was over $1.3 million, would you agree with that?
I don't dispute it.
Dick looks so annoyed. Look at him. I don't know.
Time that this
Just
was
has like
going on,
resting bitch face.
Did you have some land
And I
deals
just
that were
never
going bad,
notice it, but he looks
that had gone bad?
hella frustrated.
Which
2008, 2009, 2010, 2011?
I do have some sympathy
I think those
for
had
Jim
happened a
Griffin
little
though,
bit
because I
before
really
that.
think he
But
does.
I had some
Alex
land
as,
deals
like, a friend
that
and cares for him.
had certainly had problems.
And that had something to do with the money you were taking as well, did it not?
I think the whole picture had things to do with me.
It's the Pootie Tang movie.
mean,
Pootie Tang.
I would agree that
That's all I can think.
that certainly would have played some role in it.
Were you living a wealthy lifestyle?
A wealthy lifestyle?
Mhm.
Probably, whatever lifestyle, probably.
Would you characterize your lifestyle as wealthy?
You know, that's not how I would characterize it, but
You wouldn't
I'm not
characterize
gonna-
it as wealthy.
I'm not going to take issue with it.
Okay. Around this time, were you making a year?
Around what time?
2011.
That was Pootie Tang.
Yes.
He was like a
2012.
Yeah, Poot falls asleep
Yes.
usually around 1 o'clock. I'm surprised.
And you were
he's
still stealing
stressed
money as
right
well,
now.
correct?
That's why he's
Yes.
late.
Can we at least agree that that's a lot of money?
Over $1
Never
million?
mind, it's fine. Okay.
I think there's no question that's a lot of money.
Okay, good. We can agree on that. That's a lot of money, correct? I feel like we're struggling here. Were you living a wealthy lifestyle?
Statement, Your Honor.
Yeah,
Were you living a wealthy lifestyle?
I just about wealthy, you
Is
know.
this a hard question, Mr. Murdaugh?
Well, it's hard for me to know exactly what you want, you know, and it depends. I was spending money that wasn't mine, that I shouldn't have. I think that, you know, we lived I don't have an issue if you want to call it wealthy.
All right. Would you concede with me that not all of this money was going to pills at this point in time?
No,
All this stolen money?
no, I doubt that it was.
Okay. And it was being used to support your.
Well, I haven't looked at all these documents to know exactly what was being spent where, but here's what I do know. I know that I was making a bunch of money, and I should have had more money than I did. And I had a bunch of money on pills. And I know that, you know, I don't remember in 2011 if I just can't remember those land deals. But, you know, if I spent money on other things, I don't dispute that either. I just haven't looked at the records.
Okay. But you would at least concede that the money you were stealing was going to support your ever expanding wealthy lifestyle. Would you concede that?
Did all of the money I stole?
Any of it, Mr. Murdaugh?
Any of it? Yeah, I would certainly agree that there was money that didn't go to buy.
All right. And you would concede that even though you were generating millions of dollars in fees, that was not enough for you. Would you concede that?
If by concede that, you mean was I also stealing money that I shouldn't have? You said that repeatedly.
Who were the Flowers?
They were two young girls from Columbia.
They were underage when they became your clients?
Yes, sir.
Did they family as a result of an accident?
They did.
What loss did they suffer? Who died?
Their mother did.
And did you get a sizable recovery in the case, in that particular case related to that?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember how much that recovery was?
I don't.
Well, did he test positive
I
for
know it was
cocaine?
a
I forget. I
significant
thought they
settlement.
said he
I know
did.
It was a very good settlement, but
Millions of dollars?
oh yeah, it was millions of dollars. But whether it was, you know, 2 million, I know it was significant. I don't know if it was 8 figures, but significant settlement.
And was there a conservatorship for them because they were underage?
There was a conservatorship for them, but I don't think the fact that they were underage is why there was a conservatorship.
You don't think it was because, at least in part age, when the settlement was received?
No, that's not what I remember. But for purposes of your thing, Mr. Waters, I agree there was a conservator appointed.
Well, what is your memory of why the conservator was appointed?
My memory is that in this case who was the beneficiary or a big beneficiary in this, and who was the PR of the mother's case, was an undesirable witness. And there was testimony that
A lot more
he had-
cases than I thought. I mean, this is going to take a while.
It was testimony of his wife. And it was clear, we felt like we didn't want him to be the face of the lawsuit. So we appointed a conservator.
Who was that?
For that purpose, is
Who was-
why I believe we appointed a conservator.
Okay. And who was that?
Russell Lafitte.
At Palmetto State Bank?
Yes, sir.
And after that, did you get Russell Lafitte to start loaning you money from the Plower Girls account that he was conservator for?
He loaned me money from the Plower account. I don't do that.
Oh, you didn't talk to him about it? Y'all didn't talk about that at all?
No, we did talk about it. I mean,
there's emails to that effect. Are you disputing that to this jury?
Mr. Waters, I'm not disputing. I'm just telling you that Russell Lafitte gave me a loan from the Plowers. Your question was, did I get him? And I don't necessarily believe that to be accurate.
Well, who came up with the idea?
I don't know that it was come up with an idea. There was, I think that Russell felt like that it was a sound investment for those girls to charge me a higher interest rate. They weren't getting but so much interest somewhere else. So
What was that interest rate that y'all thought was such a good idea for these girls? Do you recall what it was?
I can't remember.
The reality is that you needed the money, and this was a convenient source to keep your massive cash flow going as early as 2011, correct?
Well, this was a loan. Yes, sir. But exactly why it came from them versus the bank, I can't tell you the details without looking at all that. I can't tell you that off the top of my head.
And despite all you were earning, you would even send Russell emails saying, hey, 75,000 from the Plower account into my account, correct? You remember emails to that effect that you would have to him?
Do I remember an email to that effect? No, I don't remember that. But
Dispute that there were emails to that effect?
not if you say there were, Mr. Waters. I don't dispute that. I don't dispute any of this, that I took money that didn't belong to me, that I misled people.
I know that you want the answer to be that simple. That's not what I'm at. We agree on that. We've agreed on that.
Well, no, sir. I don't necessarily want the answer to be simple. I just want everybody to understand I do not dispute that I stole money that was not my money, that I misled people to do that, that I misled people that trusted me to do that, and that what I did was terrible. I don't dispute that. Asking these questions, and, there's some things in there that I do take issue with.
Okay. Which part of what I just asked you about the Pliers do you take issue with? You take issue that y'all didn't conspire to do that, you and Russell? You take
Yes.
issue with that? You take issue with that? Okay.
I can tell you that Russell Lafitte never conspired with me to do anything. Whatever was done by me.
Okay. So you told the Plower girls that you were borrowing money from their account?
I find that hard to believe.
No,
but
I don't know.
I mean, what, Russell
I don't
just
know that
trusted
I-
him to give him these loans?
But I told,
To tell them?
Regardless, Russell was still
I-
wrong
I don't-
for just
I don't recall.
giving him
I don't believe so, but I
$300,000
don't,
loans through
I can't
email.
sit here and tell you what I told him however many years ago.
Did you tell Russell he could borrow money from that account too?
Yeah,
I
he'll be
don't
put away
remember
for a
having
long
with him about him
I
borrowing
mean,
money.
this is a lot of cases.
Was the
that he
supposed
stole
interest
from.
rate you were paying far lower than anything you could have gotten anywhere else?
I didn't realize it was like
I don't even know what
You don't
interest
even
rate I
know.
was
this
paying.
many. This is
One thing's clear, you never told this to the Plower girls, did you?
crazy.
I would have thought the interest rate that I was paying was a little bit more. Bank loan would have been, but I don't know that. I don't know that to be. I don't know what the interest rate was, so I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, he must have got
When you
some
stole the Badger
genetic
money,
dementia
how much
and
did you steal
suddenly
from Martha
forget.
Badger that we talked about before, the UPS case?
I don't remember the exact amount.
Over $1.3 million, would you dispute that?
I don't. I don't dispute that.
And that was in addition to the $1.2 million in attorney's fees for his case alone that would have been attributed to you through the firm?
What I stole from Arthur Badger
Let me ask you this.
was in addition
would
to any
Russell
fees that I legitimately earned.
or whatever.
I shouldn't have
his
stole
name
the
is,
money
why
from
would he
Arthur
be
Badger.
comfortable?
I misled him.
Why wouldn't he just
and
stick
I
it
was
in the
wrong.
computer? Why would he go out of
Did
his
you
way to give him loans that
Speak with
he
Russell
doesn't?
Lafitte once you stole this
He
money
faces
from
life
Arthur
without
Badger
parole on 99. Wow.
about structuring that 1 point you stole in a manner so it appeared to be payments to the Plyler account. Do you understand the question?
No, sir. Say that again.
Did you have any conversations with Russell Lafitte about structuring this
I will
$1.3
be
million
right back,
into
y'all.
multiple
I
payments
gotta,
and then applying it
I'm
to the
gonna
Plyler
start.
account?
I'll have.
I've heard
But
the
I'll have my
testimony and I've
phone.
seen some of
I'm
those
asking
records.
if you did. Did you have any conversations with Russell about that?
I had to.
Okay.
I had to have.
All right. You even asked him to recut the
He's
check, correct?
hungry.
To have Jeannie recut the check.
I've seen, I believe an
I'm just gonna
email or a
comment
text
in
to that
chat
effect.
So you don't dispute
instead of
that?
talking out loud.
No,
Like,
I
I'll
don't
be
dispute that.
listening
What I
and commenting
dispute
in
is
chat.
if you're insinuating in any way, this was stuff that I did.
Okay.
I mean, this stuff that I did these things wrong. Russell Lafitte didn't do anything.
I'm not here to
And-
talk
and
about
what-
that. I'm just talking about
But-
what went on.
And I know, but you keep talking about what I did with Russell Lafitte. And what I want to let you know is that I did this. And I'm the one that took people's money that I shouldn't have taken, and that Russell Lafitte was not involved in helping me do that.
I'm just asked you.
No, he did it. He did it without knowing it.
All right. So you sent him an email and then asked him to recut the check and have the check made out to various amounts short of that, and then applied those over time to give the illusion of payments to the Plyler account. Is that correct?
Mr. Waters,
Is that correct?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this.
Okay,
I
you don't
don't
know.
dispute what's in those as far as, or text, as far as what I told Russell and as far as what I did to again, take money that didn't belong to me, that wasn't mine, and that I was wrong for taking. It's just the specifics of that. You want me to give you details on do that. I do not dispute what's in those texts or emails.
And did you steal that Badger money because you had to pay back the Plyler girls' money before they turned 18 and reached the age of majority? And Russell held to account for that money that he had loaned to himself and to you.
First off, I don't know anything about any money that Russell loaned to himself. I only know about what he loaned to me. And I don't believe that me stealing Arthur Badger's and that money that did not belong to me, that I wrongly took, had anything to do. I don't remember it having a relationship with having to pay back a loan or there being some time pressure to pay back a loan that he gave me on Plyler conservatorship.
You don't remember that?
No, and I'm not saying that that didn't happen. I'm saying that I don't remember. That's not the way I remember it, and I don't remember it.
Did you ultimately borrow $1 million roughly from the Plyler girls without their knowledge?
$1
Does that
million?
sound right? About $1 million in total?
If you tell me that's the number, I mean, that surprises me, but I don't dispute what's in the records, but I didn't believe I had a loan for, are you saying $1 million? I didn't believe that I had a
In
loan.
total.
Mr. Waters, if that's what the records say, I don't dispute it, but that's not what I thought. I didn't think I had a $1 million loan from them. But if that's what the records say, I don't dispute that. This, if I had $1 million loan from them, I don't remember that, and I may be confusing it with a loan from the bank. But again, if that's what's in the records, I don't dispute it.
All right. So you have no memory whatsoever. For all you know, it's just a coincidence that the Plowlers were about to turn 18 when you stole this Badger money and you applied a significant amount of it to pay that off before they turned 18. You don't have any memory of that.
No, I can tell you that was never an issue or motivation for me. Again, Arthur Badger's money that I shouldn't have taken, that didn't belong to me, and that I was wrong for. I don't remember a loan from the Plyler conservatorship as being motivation for that.
So for all you can remember, it's just a coincidence.
Why I stole Arthur Badger's money, just being a
No,
coincidence?
why you applied it to the Plyler loans right before they turned 18.
No, I'm not saying is a coincidence or not a coincidence. What I'm saying, I don't remember that.
Okay.
And so I don't remember that being the motivation. If it was, I didn't know I had $1 million loan from the Plyler conservatorship. At least as I sit here today, but I would have known somewhere. And if I took Arthur Badger's money and applied it to that, I mean, again, I stole money that didn't belong to me. I misled Arthur Badger to take that money, and I was wrong.
How many times have you practiced that answer before your testimony today? One over and over again.
I've never practiced that answer, but you keep asking me these questions, and I keep using that answer.
Let me show you what's been entered into evidence as states 321. You recognize generally that document?
I do.
And what is that?
This is the disbursement sheet on the Dion Martin case.
What happened to Dion Martin?
He got in a wreck.
Did you know his family?
When he got in the wreck?
Prior to.
I knew who his family was, but prior to getting in the wreck. But after he got in this wreck, I became very close with his family.
Became very close with his family. And Dion suffered some pretty severe injuries, correct?
Dion was hurt bad. Yes.
Including an injury to his head.
I heard you say that the other day. I don't specifically remember Dion having a head injury. I believe Dion had more orthopedic injuries, but he may have had some injury to his head.
You met with him on a number of occasions?
Yes, I met with him on a number of occasions.
A number of occasions?
About Dion?
About the case, while the case was going on.
I don't know if I met with his parents about Dion's case, but I know I met with Dion, and I may have met with his parents if they say that. I mean, his dad's one of the most honorable fellows that I know. If he says I met, I certainly believe that.
You said you became close with them, correct? Close with the parents?
I consider Dion's, yes, I think the world of his dad and his mom and Dion.
What was the recovery that was obtained in Dion's case? I'll show it to you.
Let's see, it looks like recovery, $2 million. Actually, this is let's see, I know it was $2 million, but I believe the recovery was less than $2 million. I believe the recovery was less than $2 million. I believe that I said it was $2 million. I can't remember exactly what the recovery is, but I know it was less than $2 million. And I know that I misstated it as $2 million.
So you falsified the paperwork, correct?
It appears that I put inaccurate information on the page.
You put inaccurate information. You falsified it, right?
If you like that word, yes, sir.
All right. And that's that right there where you put that $500,000 on there, correct? Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I have the Elmo, please?
I'm sorry, Mr. Waters, what was?
Let's get the Elmo up and I'll show you. Right there, that's the $500,000 that you falsified this document with, is that correct? Where it says structured annuity directly to Michael Gunn?
Yeah, that looks like one place that yes.
Why did you do that?
Why did I?
Yeah, why'd you put that 500,000? What was your purpose in doing that?
It appears that I was stealing his money, $500,000.
Were you not inflating your fees with that one?
I mean,
You don't remember?
I know that like I just talked about, but I believe go back to the top of that thing, I believe what I must have done with the structured annuity is I had that $500,000 check, and I must have had that made to forge to steal that money from Dion Martin.
All right, down at the bottom.
That I shouldn't have.
Is that your signature down there?
It is.
Is that Dion Martin's signature on the other side? You dispute that?
No, I don't dispute that.
So you would have sat down with Dion Martin and gone over this document with him and convinced him that there was nothing amiss here?
You know, again, I don't know if I went over the document with him or not, but I certainly misled Dion Martin. I certainly lied to Dion Martin. I certainly took money from Dion Martin and I shouldn't have done it.
You don't specifically remember talking to Dion. There was nothing in you that causes you to remember talking with Dion, sitting there with this document in front of him, as you looked him in the eye, knowing that you were lying to him the whole time. You don't even remember that? Nothing in you that causes you to remember that?
I'm not sure that I did sit down with Dion Martin, but I certainly, Mr. Waters, I misled Dion Martin. I lied to Dion Martin. I took Dion Martin's money when I shouldn't have.
Well, let me ask you this. Of all the people on here, all these exhibits, do you have any independent recollection of a time where you sat down and the eye and you were lying to them and convincing them that everything was okay while you stole their money? Do you remember it, even one of them?
I'm sure I do.
Okay, well, tell us about one.
I mean, you have to show me, you have to give me.
I'm asking you if you remember one time where you're sitting there and you're somebody in the eye knowing you're stealing from them and you remember it.
I remember stealing from people. I remember lying to people, and I remember misleading people. For me to tell you that I sat down with each one of these people.
I'm asking you to tell me about just one conversation, one time where you recall looking somebody in the eye and them with your lies that nothing was amiss. One conversation.
There were plenty of conversations where I looked people in the eye and I lied to them. There were plenty of times where I took money that I shouldn't have taken. There were plenty of times where I stole money. For me to sit and tell you, I sat down with a specific document and what exactly was said. If you ask me questions, but I can't remember sitting down with Dion on a.
They certainly remember it, don't they, Mr. Murdaugh?
I don't know if they do or not, but I would assume so.
But you can't tell us one time where it's just a memory where you're like, I'm pulling a fast one right now.
Oh, no.
Or anything, whatever reaction you had. You can't remember a single one?
No, sir, that's not correct. I can remember a lot of times where I lied to my clients, I misled my clients, and I stole money from my clients in conversations. But for me to sit and tell you that I had a conversation about this particular document, I don't dispute it.
I know you don't dispute it, Mr. Murdaugh. You've said that 100 times, haven't you? But you can't recall for this jury one of these people looking them in the eye while you lied to them. You can't recall. I've asked you this 3 times now.
Oh, I promise you.
Your Honor, asked and answered 3 times.
Well, here. Here you go, Mr. Waters.
Point's made, isn't it, Mr. Murdaugh?
I don't know if your point's made or not, but here's what I will say again. I remember lying to clients of mine. I did it on more than one occasion. I took their money when I shouldn't have taken it. I'm sure that I looked them in the eye. I'm sure that I misled. But I can't tell you exactly when those occurred 12 years ago is the only point. I don't dispute that they occurred. I don't dispute that everything about what I did was wrong. But I can't sit and tell you specific details that you're wanting me to give you.
We could just write that answer down on a sheet of paper and you could hold it up each time you want to say that, couldn't you, Mr. Murdaugh?
Objections overruled.
If that's what you want to do, Mr. Waters, but I'm trying to answer your question.
All right. These were real people you were dealing with.
Absolutely. They were,
I know you want to give that answer, but these were real people, aren't they?
Nah, they're very real people. And, one of the saddest parts of this whole thing is, they're people that I still care about, and I did them this way. That's what I was meaning in that text that you made the issue about to Annette Griswold. And it was a lot talking about my partners, but it was a lot talking about these people. I mean, I know the people that I did wrong, hurt, that I stole from. I mean, they're people that I think a lot of. And
they didn't know.
Hang on. I want to say one more thing. And there's no question that the actions that I did, the things that I hurt a lot of the people that I care about the most. And I did a lot of damage. And I wreaked a lot of havoc.
A lot of damage and wreaked a lot of havoc. I hear you.
There's no question about it.
I'll show you what's been marked as States 315. See if you recognize that.
I do.
Which case is this?
This is Elise Mallory.
And what happened in this case?
I stole her money.
What happened with the underlying case? Can you tell the jury that? Do you remember that?
I believe it was Miss Taylor, Miss Mallory's. I believe it was her daughter. It might have been her granddaughter, but I believe her daughter was in a wreck.
Did she die?
And she got killed.
And Miss Mallory came to you for help?
She did.
You remember that one at
I
all?
do. I remember.
Okay, we remember one now.
Oh, no, Mr. Waters, I remember all of these people.
Okay.
It's not that I don't remember them. You're just asking me details about conversations.
Okay, great.
I remember all of these people that I did wrong.
All right. And you stole all of the money, didn't you?
I stole all of the money, most of the money that I've been accused of stealing, I stole.
No, I mean, you stole every single dime of the recovery. She didn't get one dime. Isn't that right?
But if
You
that's
credited yourself with legal fees and then you stole all the rest of the money, correct?
I don't dispute that.
All right.
If you
Tell
let
me
see
about, first of all, tell me about Miss Mallory. So she lost her daughter, correct? Is that correct?
that is correct.
And she came to you for
Her
help. Is
daughter,
that
her
correct?
granddaughter, but
All right.
one.
All right. And she came to you for help, correct?
Yes, sir, I agree with you on that.
Very, very sweet lady, correct?
Very sweet lady.
All right. Tell me about your conversation when you looked her in the eye and lied to her while you were stealing every dime of the money.
This is a perfect example, Mr. Waters. I stole her. I did her wrong, but I don't even believe that Elise Mallory was there when I stole that money. If you look at that disbursement sheet, I don't even believe I ever showed that to her.
Okay. You don't remember having any conversations with her when you lied with her about the case while you were stealing all her money?
I don't think I had any meetings with her. I think I stole her money, and I don't believe that I had a meeting with her.
See, again, you can't tell us one conversation you have with any of these people when you look them in the eye and convince them that you were doing them right, that you were telling the truth.
That's not true, Mr. Waters. I remember a lot of those conversations. I remember a lot of them.
Okay. All right. You just testified you remember a lot of them. I've been asking you now for the past 10 minutes to tell me about one of them where it's stuck in your heart.
There are a lot of
stuck in your brain.
There are a lot of conversations I had where I misled my clients and I stole their money. Trusted me. And I remember them.
Okay. So
but you
can you tell me one? Tell me how it went down, what you said, how you convinced them, how you looked them in the eye, how you made them believe, how you used your skills as a trial lawyer to convince them. Can you just tell me about one of those? What did it?
Your Honor, objection under Rule 403. We've been going over and over and over this.
Objection is overruled.
All right. What's your question, Mr. Waters?
Can you tell me about one of the conversations you had with all of these people? Just one.
I can tell you
what was going through your head and how it went down when you sat there and looked them in the eye and convinced them that you were doing them right while you were lying to them and stealing their money.
Yes, sir. I had a lot of conversations with a lot of my clients that I cared about. And so I will tell you that I had conversations where I misled them and I lied to them and I took their money. And that was a number of times.
Okay.
But you're asking me.
Just one specific one, Mr. Murdaugh?
Every single these clients I would have had conversations with at some point.
It's
but
fine.
This particular, like Mr. Waters, that disbursement sheet, there was never a sit down with Miss Mallory about the dispersing the money.
You don't recall talking to her about the status of her case and telling her lies and convincing her that you were on her side. You don't remember that.
Definitely remember that, but that's not what you asked me. I had numerous conversations with Miss Mallory, about this case. But the fact is you were asking me about me sitting down with this disbursement sheet, looking her in the eye and convincing her. And I'm telling you that didn't happen in this case. I had a lot of conversations with her where I misled her, Mr. Waters, where I lied to her.
Tell me about one. Tell me how it went down.
Where?
Just a moment. We're going to recess for the day and resume at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Seated while the jury leaves. Case. We'll see you all 9:30 tomorrow morning. Before we adjourn for the day.
Say, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Your Honor, we have two experts we brought in. Basically, one of them last night and another one came in today from out of state. They're not complicated. One's his testimony perhaps take 30 to 45 minutes on direct. I don't believe there's going to be much cross. The other one is a crime scene analyst who's testifying not about the whole crime scene, but specifically based on the pathologist testimony about what happened in the feed room. Total, they should not take more than 2.5 hours. Since it's apparently going to go on for a while, if we might put them up tomorrow, either first thing in the morning or at the morning break, that's what Mr. Lewis likes to do, and get them out of here. Because I believe this cross is probably going to go into Monday anyway at the rate we're going. They're not controversial. They're not going to opine on who killed who, when, and how. Just the mechanics of what happened.
What says the state?
Your Honor, and I think the defense would have to concede, I've been very as accommodating as I can throughout this, but I do not want to interrupt my cross. It took a very long time today, and the state's entitled to the same consideration without interruption.
Can you project how many more hours you have?
Well, I'm actually didn't think it would take this long to get this far, but I think we'll move through and then we'll get to the other evidence. So
4 hours, 6 hours.
I'm so bad at that, Your Honor. 3, 4, something like that. And if that's out at the outside.
So perhaps tomorrow afternoon we could
Your Honor,
get to 1 or 2.
again, we can probably do this very quickly. If Your Honor, just leave that door open. I'm going to keep them here. But if I have to keep them here over the weekend, the financial impact of that is huge.
I understand the dilemma, but I'm not going to require the state to break up the cross-examination of this witness.
Well, and again, you know, as I sit here, I could have sworn this was a murder case. For 2 hours now, we haven't heard the word murder once. And not criticizing the strategy, obviously denigrating his character is what this is about. But really not relevant to the issue of whether he killed him.
Credibility is an issue for all witnesses in every case. The world adjourned until 9:30 tomorrow morning.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna end it because I'm in the middle of cooking. All right, guys. Oh gosh, sorry, I didn't know my phone was on. Chef. So I will be back tomorrow though for his testimony. So catch y'all in the morning. Reconvene at what, like 9:30? I think it starts. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Sabrina. Everyone have. And I will see y'all tomorrow morning. I was gonna go live tonight, but it's already kind of late, so just look for me tomorrow morning at 9:30. All right. Good night, guys. Have a good night. Thank you for all the super chats. And Ryan, I will make a community post soon to show you his Hot Wheels cars. All right. Good night, guys.